Kaya, in the future, you need to cultivate diligently to strive for early entry onto the path of immortality and seek longevity. Subtitle recognition failed. Master, have you attained immortality? Subtitle recognition failed. You also have a disciple that senior brother accepted 100 years ago, who is now quite accomplished. He has become quite capable of standing alone. Subtitle recognition failed. That's right. Subtitle recognition failed. He is a rare talent in the cultivation world. His life belief is, survive. He always sends Paperman to fights while he watches on the sidelines. He even sets up layers of traps for himself to cultivate in his sect. In order to escape, he has mastered all escape techniques to perfection through cultivation. Originally, in Kinzo's plan, he would hide in the mountains peacefully and cultivate to immortality without any troubles. Unexpectedly, his master brought back a junior sister for him. Only saw an elder bringing a little girl to the front of a wooden house. After knocking on the door with no response, he then pushed the door open directly. But the house was empty with no one inside. Elder was still puzzled that Aura was clearly inside. But when he discovered the paper man on the bed, he finally understood that Aura was emanating from this paper man. Just then, a scent wafted over. Elder was shocked as soon as he smelled it. Oops, it's the gentle immortal incense that Kinzo provided. Just saw him grab little girl's arm and rush outside. But at that moment, little girl felt dizzy and disoriented. But soon the two of them couldn't hold on any longer and fell to the ground. Just when little girl was feeling confused, suddenly she heard the sound of water. She saw a long figure on the surface of the lake rising into the air. The handsome face of the young man was imprinted in the eyes of the little girl. This made her little face blush instantly. The last sentence she thought of before passing out. Indeed, it was the heroic senior brother in her imagination. Upon returning to the room, Elder immediately started hitting Kinzo and scolded him for daring to scheme against Master. Kinzo explained that he wanted to cultivate the water escape technique and set up this anti-thief arrangement. Still guarding against thieves. Our little peak is almost turning into little poor. Just as the two argued, the little girl woke up, even though she could hear the movements outside. But she couldn't open her eyes at all. She learned from the conversation between the two that her senior brother is called Kinzo, and she felt that senior brother's voice was warm. It gave her a feeling like a mother. Elder saw that she and Kinzo couldn't figure things out, so she just handed her token to Kinzo. Master asked him to wait here for Kaya to wake up. Bring her to the main peak to register. Receive the official disciple identity card and monthly supply. After speaking, Master turned around angrily and left. Not long after Elder left, the little girl on the bed opened her eyes. She saw the figure that was bowing down in contemplation at that moment. Senior brother is so tall. Master's foundation is still a bit weak. The spiritual power is insufficient. I'm afraid it will be difficult to withstand the heavenly tribulation of attaining immortality. Listening to senior brother muttering to himself, Kaya couldn't help but wonder what it all meant. Weariness struck once again. Unconsciously, Kaya gently closed their eyes. Soon, she heard the increasingly clear sound of footsteps. Junior sister, I am your senior brother Kinzo. I am now relieving you of the effects of the gentle immortal incense. If you can hear me, please don't consider me a pervert. I am a man with very positive values. But he immediately said to himself again, what nonsense am I talking about? Where can she withstand the effects of this drug just as she is starting to cultivate? Kaya, who was conscious, heard the words, pervert, and values clearly. She couldn't help but exclaim that these specialized terms about cultivation are hard to understand. Senior brother is indeed a chi cultivator. Only to see Kinzo's palm emitting strands of spiritual power energy. Then he placed his hand on Kaya's forehead to heal her. Take the opportunity to check her soul. After probing, he found that her soul was perfectly harmonized with her body. She should not have undergone soul transfer. Her aptitude seems to be pretty good. Compatibility between water and wood. just don't know what her temperament is like. But judging from her appearance, she may become a beauty in the future. Beautiful women have always been trouble since ancient times. He must try to avoid them. After checking the spirit Kinzo, he decided to further investigate whether she is hiding something like a demon seed. Then he saw Kinzo's hand leaving Kaya's forehead and slowly sliding down. Kaya's face, who was in a light sleep, also blushed slightly. When she felt senior brother's hand moving towards her abdomen, Kaya's heart raced, and she cried out excitedly, "You can't touch me there!" Kinzo nodded and proceeded with his thorough examination. There shouldn't be any issues with junior sister. She hasn't been soul transferred. She has not been cursed or hexed. She is indeed a good seedling for cultivation. Thinking of this, Kinzo wiped the sweat off his forehead. Entry inspection. Officially passed. Next up. It is about conducting a training course for junior sister. This also needs to be well prepared. She better not like to stir up trouble. In this way, the probability of attracting bad karma can be consistent with now. Looking at the sleeping Kaya, senior brother suddenly said, "He probably also understands why so many people like cute little girls in their past lives. Who can resist such cuteness?" Cute. Last life. Although Kaya didn't understand, he felt that Master was right. Senior brother seemed a bit strange. It's possible that the healing effect from senior brother's treatment had just kicked in. Kaya opened his eyes all of a sudden. But she found, senior brother's eyes were so scary, she heard senior brother ask softly, "Did you hear that just now?" Kaya was instantly scared and at a loss for what to do. Speaking of which, Kinzo found that Kaya knew his secret. He sternly warned her, "Do not mention what he had just said to anyone." Think about what he just said. The biggest loophole should be about the past life. He didn't expect himself to be guarded against for over 100 years. He actually revealed his true colors in front of the newly arrived junior sister. He turned his head and glanced at the young girl on the bed who was trying to sit up. A hint of red flashed in Kinzo's eyes. He still needed to kill to cover up the crime. Kill to cover up. But the next moment, he covered his head and sighed deeply. "What I just said. You must never mention it to anyone." Kaya immediately indicated that she remembered. However, Kinzo repeated it again. Never mention it to anyone. This includes Master. When Kaya nodded in understanding, Kinzo finally gave in. In this slanting sunlight, Kaya is under the technical guidance and supervision of senior brother Kinzo. Start recounting the Great Path Vow, which is a lengthy text of 1,000 words, considering various circumstances. After a full hour, the two of them finally walked out of the wooden house. He looked at Kaya, who was still feeling a bit dizzy. Kinzo handed over a light green pill. He asked Kaya to come and make up for chi. When Kaya swallowed the pill, she unexpectedly perked up instantly. Kinzo gently stroked Kaya's head. This junior sister is indeed quite adorable. In the future, you will also be a part of Little Peak. I'll show you around and help you get familiar with the environment. The little girl immediately responded with joy. Soon the two of them arrived at the lakeside. They watched groups of fish swimming in the lake. Kinzo proudly said, "These are all good things. They are also an important part of our Little Peak assets." Kaya looked at the colorful spiritual fish in the lake with joy. "So beautiful." When you have cultivated your first bit of chi. Let's have a spiritual fish feast once you have cultivated your first bit of chi. The spiritual fish with its colorful scales not only tastes delicious, but it is also a rare delicacy that can elevate the quality of a chi cultivator's first intake of spiritual power energy, whether it's fried, steamed, baked, or deep-fried. Kaya's forehead immediately had 2 black lines. "Do you want some? Why else would we raise them?" After saying that, he took out a handful of rice grains and started feeding the fish in the lake. Looking at Kaya's joyful expression, Kinzo then handed the fish food to Kaya. "You should like it. The mission of feeding the fish every day will be entrusted to you from now on." The little girl happily responded and took the fish food. watching Kaya's excitement. Kinzo rubbed his chin. One less task to do every day. More time can be spent on cultivation. Thinking of this, Kinzo's face was full of pride. He truly is a planning expert. After Kinzo helped Kaya complete the relevant procedures and receive the corresponding items, Kaya officially became a novice disciple of Little Peak. On that day, Master was explaining the related knowledge achieved to Kaya. When she passed by the lake, she found Senior Brother suspended above the water's surface. In Kaya's surprise, Kinzo suddenly disappeared again. At this moment, Master explained, "Your Senior Brother is comprehending the water escape technique. He has a strong interest in various escape techniques. This should be the 6th escape technique he has mastered." The little girl's eyes lit up. "Senior Brother is so amazing." When Kinzo returned to the room, Master entrusted him with the important task of teaching Kaya. Master said that he wants to cultivate the ultimate profound path. Kinzo had just been about to refuse when Master suddenly transformed into a wisp of green smoke and vanished. Soon Kinzo also realized that it might not be a bad thing to teach someone on his own. If Junior Sister knew how to survive low-key, he wouldn't have to worry about her causing any trouble for him. A few days later, Kinzo began teaching Junior Sister. Kinzo immediately started testing Junior Sister's soul. One day, your cultivation achievement at Spirit Transformation Stage 9 discovered that a cultivator at Spirit Transformation Stage 6 had offended a female cultivator at Chi Refining Stage. What would you do? He then gave 3 options. You will rush up and kill him. You are the righteous avatar, or throw a magical artifact from afar to hit him. Then you calmly leave. Ruin his mood. Or just pretend you didn't see anything. Slip away from the side. Multiple choice question. You choose. Kaya first chose the first one. How do you know if this person has hidden their cultivation achievement as someone who acts without reservation? How could they possibly be honest? What about the second option? Junior Sister, don't forget. You are also a female cultivator yourself. This beastly person has seen you, Junior Sister, who is as beautiful as a flower and precious as jade. His wild nature is even more ignited. Wouldn't you be in danger as well? Kaya was suddenly scared by Senior Brother and covered her chest. Kinzo then gave Kaya a final soul-searching question. Junior Sister, I'll give you one last chance to choose. Speak out without hesitation and make a firm decision. If you choose the third option, I will pretend that I didn't see it and let you slip by. Little did she know, this lesson will impact her entire immortal life. On that day, Kinzo was daydreaming while leaning against a tree when suddenly someone woke him up. When Kinzo opened his eyes and looked at the person in front of him, he asked, "Beautiful lady, who are you?" "You're still half asleep." "It's me, Kaya. Everyone is starting to gather at Main Peak. We'll be late if we don't go over there soon." When the two rushed to the Hall of Wonders, they found that the entrance was already packed with people. It turned out that today was the once every 5 years Disciples Outing Cultivation Trial organized by the Immortal Salvation Sect. There are a total of 12 locations for this cultivation trial, divided according to the 4 realms of refining Chi, spirit transformation, return to void, and return to path before attaining immortality. Soon an elder spoke up. "Those going to the shores of the East Sea to slay demons and evil spirits, head to the far left. Those whose cultivation achievement is not less than Refining Chi Stage 6 will go to this location, and rewards will be based on the number of demons slain." At this time, Kinzo asked Kaya to follow the majority of people. "Senior Brother, where exactly are you going?" But Kinzo just smiled without saying a word. The originally crowded crowd now gradually dispersed. Kaya watched as Senior Brother remained motionless. She was suddenly distracted by the noisy crowd while she was deep in thought, only to see 2 people coming together. They are none other than the prestigious young generation, Amy and Ryder. At this point, the elder also shouted, "Disciples from the southeast chaotic poisonous treasure forest of Reed Island, please enter the hall and wait. This place is very dangerous. Disciples frequently get injured. The minimum requirement is Spirit Transformation Realm Stage 9. At this moment, Kinzo finally stepped forward and walked on. Senior brother, what are you suddenly going to do on Reed Island for? I am going to gather herbs. Kaya couldn't help but become even more puzzled. Isn't there enough herbs at senior brother's house for you to use? You really are something. Why do you have to go to such a dangerous place? At this time, the elder urged Kaya to return to the team quickly. They were about to set off. Kaya could only sigh helplessly. She left after reminding senior brother to be careful. When Kinzo entered the hall, almost everyone's eyes turned to him. Some people were whispering that Spirit Transformation Stage 9 had come to court death. The scene was instantly extremely awkward. At this moment, someone tapped Kinzo on the back from behind. She is Julia from Sky Peak. She is going to the East Sea to hunt down those shrimp demons. Kinzo immediately bowed to her and stated that he needed to go to Reed Island to collect a certain herb. Before Kinzo could finish speaking, Julia directly threw her elder token to Kinzo. She told him to use her token to get whatever he needed. If you die, your master will definitely come and cry to me. Just thinking about it annoys me. But Kinzo still refused. If Masters Jr. chooses to accept, I certainly do not want to take any risks. This time, I have no choice. Moreover, according to the rules, Masters Jr. cannot refuse a disciple's request to go on a cultivation trial. Please fulfill this request, Masters Jr. Julia reluctantly withdrew the token. She instructed Ryder and Emmy, who were standing beside her. She asked them to help take care of Kinzo when they have the time. Kinzo looked at these two people. A woman with facial paralysis. A big warm man. They are quite well matched. When everyone was gathered, Julia summoned her wine-gourd magical artifact and enlarged it to carry everyone to their destination. Not flying far, Kinzo suddenly noticed a figure in the clouds above. He immediately transmitted this discovery to Julia Masters Jr. Julia immediately released her spiritual sense. Before long, he heard Julia shout loudly, "I didn't realize this Taoist friend had been following us for so long. What brings you here?" Just then, a burly figure flew out. "I am the Guardian General of the Honlin country in East Shinjo. I am here to protect. If there is any offense, please do not be angry." Just listen to Emmy speaking in an extremely cold tone. "Go back. You don't need to worry about me." Kinzo, on the other hand, only gave a slight twitch of his nose. "I smell the scent of a trick," said Kinzo. After Ryder and the visitor made a heartfelt plea, Emmy eventually agreed reluctantly to let this person travel with her. Julia also agreed to let him board the wine gourd and sit with Kinzo. But Kinzo always felt that this person was up to something. He then sat behind Julia, using the excuse of being shy around strangers, to keep a distance from the person. But he looked at Julia's insatiable drinking appearance. Kinzo couldn't help but cover his head. He still found a reason to leave the team and go solo. On the way, Julia casually asked Kinzo if his master is about to attain immortality soon. Crossing the tribulation should be within the next 3 to 5 years. Julia sighed. Back then, our group had a good relationship. Your master originally had good aptitude as well. But after suffering an injury, his foundation was damaged. Until now, it hasn't been able to be repaired. Kinzo showed a faint smile. His eyes also narrowed slightly. He rarely showed this expression in front of people other than master and junior sister. My master has always devoted all his efforts to teach me and junior sister. To us, master is like a parent. Talking about it. After all these years, you only reached Spirit Transformation Stage 9. Let me check your aptitude." As she finished speaking, she reached out her hand towards Kinzo. Kinzo subconsciously took a few steps back and loudly shouted that men and women should not be too close. Julia, however, simply didn't believe this nonsense and continued to reach out towards Kinzo. Kinzo quickly dodged and mentioned that a few years ago, he suddenly developed a condition where his whole body would convulse upon contact with a woman. Kinzo finished speaking and his steps shifted, leaving behind 2 lingering afterimages of his figure. He appeared directly behind Emmy. Kinzo looked at Julia with a wry smile on his face. Suddenly, Kinzo felt a gentle touch. He looked down. That was Emmy poking her inner thigh with one finger. Kinzo was instantly at a loss. He thought of what he had just said. Almost instantly, he made a decision. He's also quite ruthless. At this moment, he didn't care at all about his external image. His body began to tremble, gritting his teeth to control the muscle distortion. His face showed pain, eyes rolling upwards violently, froth forming in his mouth. If you say you're sick, you have to act like it. 2 days later, Kinzo and his group finally arrived at the chaotic poisonous treasure forest. Julia then told a few people the rules of this cultivation trial. The duration of this cultivation trial is 20 days. If you choose to quit before the 20 days are up, it will be considered a failure. At the same time, she asked the man to stay in place and not follow into the woods. The man, however, expressed his desire to protect the princess. The more Kinzo looks at this person, the more he feels that there is something wrong with this guy. Regarding his request, Julia is not used to him. She told him to either stay here by himself. Otherwise, she would tie him up here. At this point, Ryder expressed that he would protect Emmy himself. He told the man to stay here and rest assured. Kinzo felt inexplicably that Ryder and this man were accomplices. Finally, Julia emphasized again, asking them to help each other as much as possible inside. Next, Kinzo emphasized not to risk their lives searching for herbs. Precious spiritual power herbs are often guarded by fierce beasts. Before they left, she gave each person a jade ornament to be crushed when they encountered danger. She would sense it and rush in for rescue. But using the jade messenger means giving up this cultivation trial. After everyone received the jade messenger, they began walking into the woods to start their own cultivation trial, while Kinzo kept sticking talismans all over his body. Julia saw this from the side. She was so angry that she kicked him in. Go in quickly, remember to keep up with others, use Spirit Transformation Stage 9. Just as Kinzo was about to enter the forest, he suddenly transmitted a message to Julia. Those with unknown origins, like Masters Jr., are always somewhat suspicious. Do not easily believe in them. After he enters the poisonous miasma forest, Kinzo quietly took out a map. Now it seems that the top priority is to find a suitable reason to leave the team. Soon, the group arrived at a 3-way intersection. Kinzo saw an opportunity coming. He immediately chose a different path from the others and sneaked away alone. At this moment, Julia, who was watching them from the sky, saw them unexpectedly splitting into 3 groups. She couldn't help but feel a headache. They were all precious immortal candidates and couldn't afford any mistakes. At this moment, she saw the man beside her. She thought it might be better to let him follow Emmy and Ryder so that it could reduce a lot of pressure. As soon as she thought of this, the words Kinzo had said to her earlier suddenly came to mind. So she let the man follow her closely. They went to check on Emmy and Ryder's situation together. After checking the situation on the other 2 sides, Julia was very reassured. But when she looked over at Kinzo's side, she found that Kinzo had actually disappeared, just when she thought Kinzo had been swallowed whole by some culprit. She then caught sight of Kinzo. Kinzo was flying swiftly into the depths of the dense forest. Julia was so angry that she was about to grab Kinzo back. At this moment, she suddenly smelled something. Taking a closer sniff, it turned out to be the Crimson Sun poison dragon venom. Although not a rare treasure, it was still quite valuable. I don't know where he got it from. With this thing hanging around, even ordinary poisons dare not approach. No wonder Kinzo dares to act so recklessly and charge forward. Finally, she also relaxed her guard against Kinzo. Let's go! Let's go and see His Highness again. Don't talk behind our backs saying that we, as Masters Juniors, are biased. Just as Julia turned and flew off into the distance, A black beetle flew out beside the man's leg. It flew straight towards Kinzo, who was dashing. Kinzo suddenly stopped in his tracks. He looked up at the sky. Why did he feel like a pair of eyes were staring at him in the air? Kinzo's first reaction was Masters Jr., but quickly dismissed it. Because the gaze was hostile, adhering to the principle of better to believe it than to disbelieve it. Just watch as Kinzo forms hand seals with his hands, muttering words under his breath. A burst of golden light appeared on the black earth in front of him. He stepped into it with the earth escape technique of the 5 elements. His figure swiftly sank into the ground and disappeared in the blink of an eye. After a moment, Kinzo's figure emerged from a thicket 50 miles away. The feeling of being followed has indeed disappeared. At this point, he could also make a definitive judgment. He and his companions are bound to encounter some unexpected events. Kinzo continues to speed towards his destination. At this moment, he remembered the man who suddenly appeared halfway. Ryder always looks very kind, but he appears very cold on the surface. Actually, Emmy shouldn't have any hidden agenda. Princess, secular power. Kinzo's heart has analyzed a clue and is increasingly convinced that a story is bound to happen. But think about it. These have nothing to do with me. If it weren't for having no other choice, I wouldn't take the risk of coming to such a dangerous place. This completely goes against my life principle of surviving in the mountains until I grow old. But when he thinks of his own master, Kinzo rallied again and continued to dash through the black forest filled with poisonous miasma. Speaking of which, Kinzo has been trekking through the poisonous miasma forest for 2 days. Suddenly, he felt like he was being followed again. He threw out a few spider threads from his left hand for reconnaissance. Before long, a scene of a person rushing towards him quickly emerged in Kinzo's mind. The opponent's cultivation achievement was initially assessed to be at Stage 6 or Stage 7 of Return to Void, but there was a possibility of concealing a second assessment at Stage 6 of Return to Path Realm. This assassin did not use a more efficient flight technique. The chances of having attained immortality were extremely low. He decided to find a suitable ambush location and spotted an open space ahead. Instantly, an idea formed in his mind. He took out 2 paper men from his right hand. Next, Kinzo once again used Earth Escape. At the same time, a bright light shone from his right hand. At this moment, the assassin behind him had also caught up. A sword chi shot straight toward Kinzo. Before Kinzo could react, his neck was struck by that sword chi. His head was thrown directly backwards. Then the assassin appeared next to Kinzo. Just as he was about to become pleased with himself, the headless Kinzo reached out and grabbed the man's ankle. The assassin instinctively chopped off Kinzo's arm. He quickly retreated several meters backward and realized immediately that he had fallen into a trap. But it was already too late at this point. Suddenly, a fragrant smell wafted out. This is Kinzo's self-developed hallucinogenic drug Gentle Immortal Incense. Assassin immediately felt like all his strength was being drained away. His spiritual power and aura became extremely lazy, to the point where they couldn't operate at all. Just then, Kinzo emerged from the ground holding an umbrella. This umbrella was Kinzo's own magical artifact, the sky-changing divine umbrella. Kinzo gently spun the umbrella. A 15-jong diameter isolation spell formation suddenly appeared out of thin air. It is based on an umbrella. It completely isolates everything here from the outside world in an instant. Then Kinzo raised his right hand. In an instant, the 3 paper men swelled up and turned into Kinzo's appearance. They rushed forward. The paper men had not reached the assassin yet. Kinzo had already raised a bronze short crossbow in his left hand. He decisively pulled the trigger. An arrow shot out swiftly. It accurately pierced through the assassin's forehead. The next 3 paper man clones rushed forward. The first paper man shot out 3 long nails. They directly pierced the assassin's 3 energy cores from top to bottom. The long spike locked his 3 souls, fixed his 7 spirits. The second paper man opens his mouth and sprays out a flame. completely wrapping the assassin's figure. The third paper man speaks eloquently with words, using the "Subdue spirits, vanquish demons" magic spell. At this point, the assassin's soul has scattered, and only a small handful of remains are being consumed by flames. At this moment, Kinzo once again summoned a precious bead and absorbed all the remaining shreds of the opponent's fragmented soul into it. Just to be safe, he had the three paper men simultaneously recite the Transference Sutra. In the end, only a broken sword, a small amount of ash, and a tiny ring were left underground. Kinzo casually took the ring into his palm, not in a hurry to break the restriction on it. He simply wrapped it layer by layer with spiritual power, and threw it into his spare storage magical artifact. It was not until then that Kinzo retracted the umbrella. He also recycled the three paper men. At the same time, he raised his left hand and pointed his sword. A touch of sword chi surged out. The sword chi accurately hit a black beetle, which was instantly blown to pieces. The whole action was smoothly executed as if it had been practiced countless times before. Afterwards, he used Earth Escape to quickly distance himself from this place. Kinzo saw many memory fragments from the fragmented soul inside the gem. He also took the opportunity to explore the memories of the assassin. The assassin named Vulture Cultivation Achievement was hired with Spirit Stones in return to Path Realm Stage 2. He specializes in doing dirty work as a chi cultivator. He ambushed Kinzo because of the messenger talisman on him, wanting to lure Julia here with the messenger talisman. As long as Julia rushes to his side, this group of people will immediately target Liliana and Noah, using them as bait to lure Julia into a spell formation. And their real target. They want the princess. Such elaborate arrangement. They seem to be aiming for a more sordid purpose. And the mastermind behind all this turned out to be the junior fellow disciple writer at the shore of the East Sea. Kaya, armed with a poison powder given by senior brother, is wreaking havoc. She complains in her heart that senior brother went on this risky mission without taking her along. Just as she was lost in thought, 7 or 8 shrimp demons sneak attack Kaya. At a critical moment, she remembered the secret weapon senior brother had given her. When encountering emergencies or tough enemies, she would throw this bottle out. In a flash, Kaya took out a porcelain bottle and threw it out. The bottle exploded among the group of shrimp demons, instantly enveloping them all in a red smoke. As soon as those shrimp demons came into contact with the smoke, they instantly dissipated and turned into countless colorful bubbles scattered in the air. At this moment, the other associates on Reed Island noticed that both Vulture and Kinzo's auras had disappeared simultaneously. They mistakenly thought that Vulture had left after killing someone and taking the spoils. The labyrinth formation targeting Julia was already in place. After discussions among the group, they dispersed one by one and began their actions. Half a day later, Ryder decisively crushed the messenger talisman without hesitation. Emmy, sitting on the ground injured, angrily questioned Ryder. At this moment, one of Ryder's men reported that Julia had taken the bait. Ryder then took out a box. "This is love goo. After planting love goo, you will only have me in your heart." At this moment, Julia and that man are flying rapidly towards Ryder's side. But at this moment, Noah's messenger talisman also lit up. He was troubled by his inability to split into multiple forms. The person suggested that he himself go to Ryder's place, and that Julia quickly go to rescue Noah and the others. Julia thought that the person was Emmy's bodyguard and didn't think much of it. She agreed to his suggestion and immediately flew over to Noah's location. As she watched Julia leave, the man revealed a sinister smile. When Julia arrived, she found that only Noah and another person had already passed out on the ground. After investigating, she found that both of them were unharmed. She finally felt relieved when she lifted the two of them to leave. But at this moment, a thick fog rose all around them. Julia suddenly realized that she had entered into a powerful spell formation. Julia flew around in the spell formation, feeling lost. Not being skilled in formation techniques, she quickly realized that she was spinning in place. At this moment, she finally realized that she had been fooled from the beginning. The person's intention was to lead her away, and the goal of these people was probably directed towards Emmy and Ryder. Julia couldn't help but curse out loud. What kind of chi cultivator tricks are these ghostly tricks? You rogues. If you have the ability, come out and fight me for 300 rounds. Only some poisonous insects responded to her. At this time, on Kinzo's side, looking at the map in his hand, he couldn't help but complain. Immortal Remedy herb is really hard to find. A drop of rain fell on the map at this moment. The map was instantly corroded with a hole by the rain. Acid rain? Kinzo also didn't dare to act rashly at this moment. He directly opened a hole in the cliff to prepare to go in and take shelter for a while. Out of caution, Kinzo first used a spider silk to probe around. But suddenly he sensed something. After a quick count on his fingers, the situation has changed. I need to go out and take a look. At this moment, a woman was falling from a high altitude. She happened to be met by Kinzo, who had just come out. Upon closer inspection, he found that the person was actually Emmy. Little did Kinzo know that he had some tricks up his sleeve. He turned his head directly to the side. "Oh dear, the rain is pouring heavily," he said in order to completely block his view. He couldn't see a thing now. Emmy, on the other hand, let out a loud crash and had an intimate encounter with the ground. Just as Kinzo was about to turn and leave, a weak voice came from behind. "Kinzo, senior brother? Please go, don't mind me. Your cultivation achievement is too low. They have strength in numbers." Upon hearing this, Kinzo sighed heavily in resignation. "All right. Since you still have a conscience, I'll accompany you halfway. I won't be able to take care of you in the second half. You'll have to rely on fate." It's unknown how long passed. Emmy suddenly woke up. She found herself still alive. Only then did she realize. It was senior brother Kinzo who saved her. At this moment, she suddenly discovered a letter left beside her, along with some pills and a talisman. After reading this letter, she found out that it was written by an anonymous person. Recalling that she had been injured by Ryder before, at a critical moment, Emmy used the teleport talisman given by the master. This was how she coincidentally got teleported here and met Kinzo. At this moment, Emmy also discovered that her legs, waist, and other private parts were wrapped with bandages. She blushed instinctively, but then she thought of Kinzo, who suffers from a condition that causes him to convulse when in contact with women. Not only did he endure the pain of convulsions and foaming at the mouth to wrap her wounds, but he also left so many things for me. She was deeply moved. She vowed to repay senior brother Kinzo in the future when she had the chance. Little did she know, the map that Kinzo left for her indicated a southwestern direction, while he himself was heading northwest to avoid encountering her again. However, all plans are idealistic. Reality can be cruel. A few days later, after Emmy had recovered from her injuries, she directly smashed the large stone blocking the entrance. She saw senior brother Kinzo still using round stones to block the entrance, coming to help her conceal her whereabouts. She must return alive to repay him. But Emmy looked at the map left by Kinzo. This really puzzled her. What direction is the southwest direction after all? In the end, she flew off in the northwest direction based on intuition. At this moment, Kinzo, who was on the road, couldn't help but shiver involuntarily. Why did he have an inexplicable sense of foreboding? At night, Kinzo sat on the ground helplessly watching the crimson sun-poisoned dragon venom in his hand diminishing. He had collected a pile of various strange flowers and plants, but he couldn't even find a trace of the immortal remedy herb he was after, not even a seedling. He couldn't help but look up and let out a long sigh. Master's luck seems to be really bad. Just then, a sudden fluctuation of spiritual power energy was sensed not far away. Kinzo used his spiritual sense to investigate. He found that it seemed like rogue cultivators were active in spell duel on the border of Reed Island, where many chi cultivators were venturing deep into the island for thousands of miles in search of precious exotic flowers and fruits in exchange for resources for their own cultivation. Kinzo immediately felt the urge to retreat in his heart, just when he thought that this trip to Reed Island might end in regret. He unexpectedly found that the cliff next to him was actually the destination of his trip. When he approached this immortal remedy herb, he found that this herbal medicine was actually guarded by an azure wave serpent. Moreover, there were signs that it was about to ascend as a flood dragon and attain immortality. He secretly calculated in his heart that although he might not necessarily lose in a direct confrontation, the surrounding environment was too dangerous. It seemed that he had to find a way to outsmart it. At this moment, Kinzo's spiritual sense also detected the situation of a spell duel further away. At first glance, he almost turned around and left. Encountering her again, what's the deal with this Emmy? Might as well change her name to Emmy. He clearly drew a map for her to go southwest. How did she end up here? He couldn't help but cover his face in speechlessness. But thinking carefully, there are spell dual fluctuations in this direction. Only then did he discover the immortal remedy herb. From this perspective, he also needs to thank Emmy for saving him last time. By taking advantage of her a little this time, we'll call it even. But he looked at the few people surrounding Emmy at this moment. I'm afraid it wouldn't even be enough to floss the teeth of this azure wave serpent. But he quickly found out. There are still two auras in the air that have not yet moved. It is Makoa and Ryder. The thought of Ryder dragging on and on kept bothering him. He just wants to catch Emmy alive. Isn't he just trying to get her? Despicable. Thinking of this, Kinzo immediately used the wind whisper spell to transmit his voice to Emmy. Facing you at the moment, take 8 steps back from the heaven position towards the thunder position. Emmy suddenly heard Kinzo's voice and was still puzzled. How did senior brother Kinzo end up here? Immediately after, Kinzo transmitted again. Retreat to fire position 6 feet. Don't hesitate. Counterattack if you have the strength. Pay attention to your expression. Don't let them suspect anything. Move to fire position 3 feet. Switch to thunder position 5 feet. That's it. Kinzo keeps directing Emmy to lead a group of people towards Azure Wave Serpent continuously. Rush 4 steps to earth position. Retreat 6 steps to fire position. The poison has started to move towards the left side. Kinzo is observing the demon's movements while also looking after Emmy's well-being. Move forward 3 steps to water position. Retreat 9 steps to thunder position. It has now set its sights on you. Focus on following my guidance later on. Kinzo continues to use the escape technique repeatedly. Provide timely guidance to Emmy. When I mention jump, you should rush into the air at full force. Absolutely do not hesitate even for a moment. After seeing the opponent's response, Kinzo seizes the opportunity to give the signal to jump. Just as expected, Emmy rushes into the air without any hesitation. Just as the few people were about to chase over, Azure Wave Serpent suddenly appeared in front of them. It opened its mouth and bit towards the 3 of them. Makoa in the air saw his 2 elite soldiers being killed. He couldn't sit still any longer. He flew towards the Azure Wave Serpent. While Emmy, who was escaping at that moment, was wondering how she didn't notice Kinzo's aura, suddenly a sword flew down from the sky, blocking her way. The newcomer was Ryder. When Makoa and the Azure Wave Serpent were entangled in battle, Kinzo hides on the side with the paper man. In the end, Makoa chopped off the head of the Azure Wave Serpent with a single axe. Kinzo saw the opportunity. He took out the self-developed gentle immortal incense directly. He dodged to the side and directly threw the gentle immortal incense towards Makoa. It smashed onto the ground and exploded instantly. The elite soldier almost instantly collapsed on the ground. Next, Makoa also stumbled and fell to the ground. Just as Makoa was shocked by what kind of poison this was, suddenly, a crossbow arrow hit his neck. Then he saw Kinzo slowly emerging from the trees. Kinzo threw out the sky-changing divine umbrella. He then took out a crossbow and aimed at Makoa again. At the same time, his left hand turned 3 paper men into clones. They launched attacks on Makoa. At the same time, Kinzo pulled the trigger and shot an arrow at Makoa. The arrow hit his neck successfully once again. When those three avatars approached Makoa, he produced a highly corrosive poison specially made by Kinzo. Three people simultaneously threw the poison towards Makoa. As soon as the smoke made contact, Makoa's armor slowly corroded away. Kinzo leaped into the air once again, shooting the third arrow at Makoa. The third arrow pierced through Makoa's corroded chest, striking his heart. And the three Paper Man avatars simultaneously breathed out flames, directly engulfing Makoa. When Makoa fell, he finally saw the appearance of the person who attacked him. "It's you." However, Makoa, being an immortal, would not willingly accept such an ending. Makoa let out a loud roar, with waves of light and shadows appearing on his body, and a huge phantom above his head. It was his primary soul leaving his body. The primary soul exerted all its power, and struck towards Kinzo with a palm. Kinzo was just about to dodge, but his ankle was suddenly grabbed by someone. He glanced down to see that it was actually an elite soldier who had been poisoned. But at that moment, the palm had already reached Kinzo's face. Almost in an instant, Kinzo's upper body was smashed by this palm, just as Makoa succeeded in killing his opponent. Behind him came the sound of air being torn apart. 7 long nails simultaneously struck Makoa in various parts of his body. He was stunned to discover that he had only shattered a paper man. Makoa immediately thought of his original body, and found that it had long been burned down to just a skeleton. And at this moment, another Kinzo emerged from the tree. He clenched his fist in front of Makoa. "I'll kill you." The long nail inserted into Makoa's body burst open instantly. Kinzo once again sacrificed the soul gem to absorb Makoa's fragmented soul. After the battle ends, Kinzo is taking stock of the results of this battle. The Paper Man retrieved 3 and put 1 out of action. All physical bodies were burnt to black ashes. And the spoils he acquired were only an axe and a storage magical artifact. Kinzo couldn't help but wonder how an immortal like him could be so poor. Fortunately, he finally got his hands on the immortal remedy herb that was the goal of this trip. In line with the principle of not wasting anything, Kinzo collected the head of the Azure Wave Serpent. It should be possible to refine some good poison from it. By then, it can be used to protect Junior Sister from harm. In no time, Kinzo arrived at the battlefield of Emi and Ryder. He soon realized that his worries were completely unnecessary. At this point, Emi has a firm upper hand. Ryder's cultivation achievement in Return to Void Realm. This should be built up using pills, right? This is among the disciples of the same generation. Is he the second-ranked figure? Kinzo suddenly realized that if all contemporary disciples are this level. In the following years, in the Immortal Sect's big competition, if Kai is given some more pills and self-developed magical artifacts, she could probably make it into the top 100. At this point, Ryder saw himself as no match for Emi. He was preparing to escape. Kinzo, who was hiding nearby, quietly took out the gentle immortal incense. He seized the opportunity and threw the incense at Ryder. Ryder thought it was some kind of concealed weapon and immediately smashed the bottle. The smoke instantly enveloped him. His body immediately lost strength. At this time, Emi was also planning to capture Ryder and bring him back to the sect. She wants to let the master decide what to do with Ryder. Little did she know that all her attacks hit him one by one. Emi was greatly surprised by how he suddenly stopped resisting. But at this time, Ryder had already died. Emi looked at Ryder's body and couldn't help but say, "Even if your heart is as evil as it is, do you feel a hint of remorse? Were you too forced by someone?" Kinzo, who was standing on the side, couldn't help but give a thumbs up to Emi upon hearing this. Junior Sister really lives up to her name. She even has a strong ability to brainwash herself. Watching Emi hesitate in the uncertain surroundings, and instead of swiftly leaving after killing the opponent, she lingers here in reminiscence and emotion. It's obvious she hasn't endured the harsh realities of life and lacks vigilance. At this moment, Emi suddenly remembered Kinzo and was about to go find him. She suddenly smelled the gentle immortal incense. Immediately, she felt dizzy and passed out completely. At this moment, Kinzo reached out a hand from the soil. He grabbed Emi's hair firmly. Kinzo just kept holding her hair like that, using Earth Escape to take her away. Kinzo is really ruthless. He is afraid of misunderstanding to avoid physical contact with Emi. He actually dragged Emi by her hair for thousands of miles on the ground. Julia, trapped inside the formation, watched Noah and Liliana fall in love there. She suddenly became extremely irritated. Not knowing whether that guy is dead or alive, Kinzo would be in trouble if something happened. How would she explain to her master if those two precious immortal candidates died young? Her 100 years' worth of wine money would all be gone. At the thought of this, Julia's whole state of mind deteriorated. Suddenly, a strong gust of wind whipped up. "Julia, do you know your guilt?" Julia panicked at the sound. "Master." The person threw the two men who knocked out Noah out. Watching the figures in the smoke, Julia was shocked that Master had actually come in person to find them. She then knelt down with a thud. She said she had been plotted against, and was willing to accept punishment. She requested to quickly search for the whereabouts of the other three people. When the smoke cleared, the embarrassed person rubbed their head. "Master didn't come. It's me." But the person who came was Julia's senior brother Jace. The next second, Julia angrily punched Jace and sent him flying. I cracked a joke to lighten the mood. "Julia, why are you being so rude? I raised you through thick and thin." He hadn't finished speaking when he saw Julia grinning and clenching her fist. Immediately after that, she started crazily hitting Jace. After a long while, Jace cleared his throat a few times before getting to the main topic. He pointed to the side. "Their masters have all arrived." Kinzo's master grabbed Julia's hand. He asked tremulously, "How is Kinzo?" "When I saw Kinzo last time, he went north." He immediately bent down. He expressed his hope that several of you could help him find Kinzo, indicating that he has not yet attained immortality. Jace expressed that he would definitely find Kinzo. At this moment, Julia also shared her speculation with Emi's master, hoping that her guess was correct. This time, it was a calculation targeted at Emi. At once, the group decided to split up into three directions. One group would go to the town outside to gather information. The second group would head northwest to find Emi, and the third group would go north to search for Kinzo. As night fell, Emi finally woke up. Emi felt that her injuries were not serious. But why was her scalp so painful? Kinzo, on the other hand, was sitting calmly nearby. At this point, Emi asked Kinzo if we are waiting here. Kinzo explained that he had left hidden marks within a radius of 300 miles. He has also set up hidden formations outside this cave to cover his tracks. It is relatively safe here for the time being. If Ryder's group has other accomplices, venturing further south could easily lead us into their hands. Calculate the days. Regardless of whether Julia is rescued or not, the immortals who are coming to assist us should have already entered Reed Island. Emi watched as Kinzo lazily leaned against the cliff. Suddenly, both of their faces blushed uncontrollably. There was a bit of emptiness in their hearts, as if a small cat paw was gently scratching inside. To ease the awkward atmosphere, Emi asked if there was anything they could do on their own. Kinzo, however, said that as long as you don't easily release your spiritual sense, it should be fine. He also mentioned that Makoa and those few rogues will perish together with the Azure Wave Serpent that is about to attain immortality, reassuring her not to worry. Emi suddenly looked disappointed, feeling like she had become a burden. At that moment, Kinzo suddenly asked Emi for a favor. Emi suddenly stood up excitedly. "Please tell me, senior brother. If I can repay senior brother's life-saving grace, Emi is willing to sacrifice this life." Looking at Emi's serious expression, Kinzo expressed that it wasn't necessary to be so serious. After we go back, we will definitely be asked in detail. I have always been afraid of trouble, and do not want too much attention or to cause any trouble. When junior sister reports to the master, please do not mention much about matters related to me. My cultivation achievement is not high. I only have one skill, the earth escape. Saying it out loud might make people laugh. Upon hearing this, Emmy believed that Kenzo was showing kindness without seeking anything in return, solely focused on the immortal path. Her admiration for Kenzo grew even more. Emmy kept all of this in her heart. Kenzo, however, was extremely worried in his heart. He always felt that she still had residual poison in her body. Suddenly, Kenzo felt the movement outside. Masters Jr., they have arrived. Several figures were seen flying towards here at high speed. Masters Jr., who was leading the group, was about to greet the two of them. A roar came from behind her. Kenzo looked at Master's excited expression. Kenzo couldn't help but show a little smile. It looks like Master is going to give him a kind beating on his bum again. But deep down, there is always a warm feeling. He didn't dodge either, letting Master hit him a couple of times to vent his anger. You dare to come here with just spirit transformation realm cultivation. Aren't you holding back others by doing this? Masters Jr. Emmy immediately spoke up. Senior brother Kenzo did not drag anyone down. On the contrary, I have been helped by senior brother several times. Yes, I did not lag behind and also helped a lot. Kenzo quickly intercepted Emmy's words. It's precisely because of the cultivation trial here that I have broken through to the return to Void Realm. Master's eyes filled with tears in an instant. You really have the nerve to say that. You cultivated for 100 years before comprehending the return to Void Realm. You are still so proud and arrogant. Look at Emmy. She is already in stage 4 of return to Void after all, and then there was a violent beating. Kenzo was a bit helpless. Fortunately, he acted well himself. By the way, Emmy, do you know about Ryder's whereabouts? Emmy, tell him that Ryder is dead. She killed him with her own hands. This was all done by me alone. It has nothing to do with senior brother Kenzo. Kenzo only used the escape technique to help me escape with my life. Please punish me accordingly. In fact, when the immortals arrived, they had searched the soul of the man in black and roughly understood the course of events. He also wanted to confirm the facts. He is ready to return to the sect and accept the punishment. And at this moment, Jace was somewhat excited as he looked at Kenzo, asking if he could put away those double-pupiled spider silk threads. They are rare treasures that are hard to come by. Kenzo understood his thoughts at a glance. If Senior Sect Uncle is interested in them, I have a few nests of double-pupiled spiders raised on Little Peak. I'll move one nest over as a gift. But his master Rain does not know the value of this item. Why are you so stingy? How many nests of the immortal insect are there? Keep one for yourself and move the others to Jace, Senior Sect Uncle. Kenzo almost choked himself to death in one breath. His heart is bleeding incessantly. But he can only try to keep a smile on his face. After everyone left, they finally returned to the long-lost Immortal Salvation sect. But the house leaked just in time for a night of rain. Kenzo never expected that. Junior sister came up and gave herself a big hug. She kept praising herself. Kenzo's first instinct was that Kaya was hiding something from him. Sure enough, under Kenzo's aggressive questioning, Kaya took out empty bottles one by one. These poison powders are all given to her by Kenzo for self-defense. This amount is enough to poison down the armies of the 100,000 in this secular world. And now she has used them up by just dealing with a few small fry. Not knowing, one would think that Kaya had defeated some powerful monster. She admitted her mistake. I didn't expect Kaya to keep avoiding eye contact. Go ahead and tell me everything while I'm in a good mood. Kenzo's forehead veins bulged. Kaya shivered all over at first. She then knelt down on the ground directly. I'm sorry. 2 senior sect uncles in this sect are interested in the poison powder you refined. They took away several bottles of the most potent poison from me. And, senior brother, your extremely high level of poison refining skills. It was also accidentally exposed by me. The room fell silent. What kind of person is senior brother? Perhaps only this junior sister understands him the best in the world. Oh no, oh no. Senior brother must be completely disappointed in her. But Kenzo just gave her ear a little twist. Get up. This is not a big deal. Do you think I don't know your temper? It's all in Kenzo's control. Since he gave junior sister these poison powders for self-defense, he intentionally wanted her to reveal them as well. He asked junior sister if among the two seniors who took away the poison powder from you, there was an old man with a sick left leg, leaning on a copper crutch. Junior sister nodded. This person is the senior with the deepest understanding of the toxic path in the Immortal Salvation sect. If you can take this opportunity to establish a good relationship with this senior, you may receive guidance from him in the future, especially in poison refining. Kaya complained a little discontentedly. Do you need to scheme against me as well? If you have something to say, just tell me directly, okay? Kenzo earnestly educates her not to change the subject. What we are talking about now is your squandering of the poison pill. Tomorrow I will punish you to go to the back mountain to chop wood and clear land. You are not allowed to use Taoist technique's spiritual power. Kenzo wants to build a room for pill refining and poison refining. He wants the management of the sect to know that he is good at poison refining. From now on, he won't have to hide like a cat every time. The next morning, Masters Jr. arrived at Kenzo's room early in the morning and kept complaining. Because of the unsuccessful protection this time, she was punished by several elders to quit drinking for 3 years, which was more painful than killing her. At this moment, Kenzo's eyes lit up as he thought of another way to trick people. He took out a drink called Immortal Drunkenness that could replace alcohol. It is both a hallucinogenic drug and a fine wine. However, it does not have any alcohol content itself. Other than intoxication, it has no other effects. Julia tasted it curiously. The powerful medicine made her eyes start to become blurry. Her expression seemed as if she was on the brink of ecstasy and death. Kenzo needs her help to solidify the foundation of his formation. The two of them quickly reached a consensus. So 2 years later, Kenzo's door was kicked open by someone. Masters Jr. rushed in with a worried look on his face. What about immortal drunkenness this month? Masters Jr. has completely fallen into despair. Don't worry, I won't forget about Masters Jr. Kenzo handed her 2 jade pots. 20 days later, I still want to ask Masters Jr. to help me refine a more difficult pill, and you must keep this matter confidential for me. Julia was a bit confused about what kind of mysterious pill this was. This is a poison pill called Immortal Melting. Julia's face changed drastically when she heard about the Immortal Melting pill. What are you making that world-ending poison pill for if even she can be poisoned directly? Don't worry, Masters Jr. I will not do anything that harms the principles of the world. Poison pill can be used to kill as well as to save people. As long as I successfully refine the Immortal Melting pill, I will persuade Master to carry it by his side when crossing the tribulation. The probability of Master surviving the heavenly tribulation can reach 90%. And this is just the first plan he has prepared for Master to cross the tribulation. There are many more plans to ensure nothing goes wrong. At this moment, Kenzo is preparing the first plan to help Master cross the tribulation. Its core is to refine the Immortal Remedy herb into the Immortal Melting pill. Even with a success rate of 90%, he is still not satisfied. He has prepared many backup plans. At the same time, Jace discovered that his junior sister has been visiting Little Peak more and more frequently. He felt that something was wrong. But he couldn't just ask his junior sister directly if she was attracted to Kenzo from Little Peak. So he brought his cultivation partner with him, and went there in person. Of course, in the face of such a thing, he had to sneak over to see the truth. Kenzo had already set up the chain formation here, waiting for Jace to discover it, and have a good laugh. The person who arranged this formation has decent skills. However, A mere confusion and disorientation formation cannot defeat me. He is particularly confident in his formation technique. Jace remained calm and smiled. He exudes a mysterious self-confidence all over his body. So 2 hours later, Jace began to doubt his life. This is fake, right? The formation technique I comprehended before were all fake, right? He crazily hit his head against the tree trunk. Did I take the wrong path? Turns out, I'm just an immortal of this level. His cultivation partner by this side was at a loss. Don't scare me. We'll just blow it up. But someone who can set up this kind of formation, how could they not be on guard? Maybe it will immediately transform into a killing formation. Jace had snot and tears running down his face, looking up at his wife. Turns out I've never been good enough for you. I'm just a waste. Suddenly, a breeze brushed by. The dense white mist in the woods gradually dispersed. What met his eyes was a huge pill refining building. Kinzo felt a bit helpless. Let them take a look and feel reassured about their relationship. Avoid any future unrest for oneself. Let's start pill refining. So Kinzo directly took out a magical artifact cloth similar to a spacesuit. A pair of toxic-resistant gloves that can withstand most severe poisons. A detoxifying talisman combined with an antidote pill. Various materials that are corrosion-resistant. And containers with strange shapes. You truly live up to your name. Masters Jr. is directly dumbfounded. She couldn't help but complain in her heart. This is definitely the most cowardly cultivator she has ever seen. The two people outside the window were speechless for a while. However, Jace's wife thinks that Kinzo is still quite handsome. Apart from his cultivation achievement being a bit lacking, there are no other issues. The next day, Julia handed the spider over to senior brother. Jace didn't care about the spider. He was really scared by being called junior sister. Is it really necessary to go this far? Jace looked at junior sister seriously and asked, Have you and Kinzo been together for the past 2 years? Julia strongly refuted. Do you think I'm someone who preys on younger people? I would never do such a thing. Afterwards, she explained to senior brother. Jace became more and more shocked as he listened. Chain formation turned out to be arranged by him, using his plan through others' hands. What a brilliant idea. Although this Kinzo's aptitude is not top-notch, reaching return to Void Realm within 100 years of entry is considered above average. If he is nurtured properly, attaining immortality should not be a problem. He is a material that can be molded. He is determined to go and meet this disciple who has been hiding so deeply to see what Kinzo's true strength is. He is the male lead who is most capable of playing a shrinking violet in the history of cultivation novels. He can achieve immortality with just one thought at the beginning. He views facing the heavenly tribulation without complete certainty as going to his death. Kinzo had long anticipated that Jace was thoughtful and sensitive. Jace has always had many questions about him. This situation is not good for him. So he asked Julia to bring him 2 bottles. Bone-corroding and hard-dissolving pill, and soul transmutation and death-seizing pill. And the small print on it, Julia definitely won't notice. This is obviously for Jace to read. The path to immortality is rarely found, with only 3 parts of it shrouded in mystery. A true gentleman does not seek false grandeur, but remains steady and resolute. His implicit meaning is to let Jace pretend not to notice his unusualness. Kinzo wants to meet him at noon. Jace recalled everything that had happened before. His face was full of shock. He had never expected a junior to be so cunning and bold. He did not want to attract attention by being unobtrusive. However, Jace also serves as an officer of the Immortal Sect. It is still decided to go and investigate the matter thoroughly. In the middle of the night, Kinzo has been waiting here for a long time. He first prepared a good meal and wine for Senior Sect Uncle, then thought about how to eliminate the threat posed by Senior Sect Uncle. For Kinzo, someone's curiosity and interest in him is a potential threat. He decided to reveal some of his hidden cultivation achievements first to make Senior Sect Uncle Jace think that he had already figured him out. In this way, He can not only eliminate threats, but also turn them into opportunities. The next second, Kinzo lightly tapped the table with chopsticks. Powerful spiritual energy burst out of the body. This move instantly sobered up the slightly intoxicated Jace. He was secretly shocked. This Kinzo cultivation achievement has already reached the return to Void Stage 5. He can reach this realm after cultivating for more than 100 years. His aptitude is very outstanding. He can also rank among the top in the contemporary disciples. What's even more rare is his exceptional intelligence and mindset. Kinzo gave a silly smile. I have informed Senior Sect Uncle of his cultivation achievements. This should prove that I mean no harm. Kinzo is quite the actor. You should know that Kinzo has just killed an immortal. You can boldly speculate now. After he sends Jace away. Kai is also a bit curious. Senior brother, what realm has your cultivation achievement reached now? Have you caught up with Master? Are you about to attain immortality soon? Kinzo glanced at her. What do you think? According to a little-known source, Kinzo is currently suppressing his cultivation achievement and can achieve immortality at any moment with just one thought. After he achieves immortality, he will directly advance to the next level. He almost achieved the Heaven Immortal realm. At the same time, Kinzo has successfully refined the Immortal Melting Pill. The first plan to help Master cross the tribulation has been finalized. But he still needs to synchronize the second and third plans. In case Master suddenly has sudden enlightenment and successfully transcends the heavenly tribulation to become a normal immortal, there will be no need to use the first plan. Be well prepared. He is not afraid to travel all over the cultivation world. At this moment, in order to help Master Kinzo cross the tribulation, he has actually created a lightning protection device that can divert thunder tribulation. He is also too genius to use science to cross the tribulation. Not long after, Kinzo arrived at Master Seclusion's place. Master, I would like to ask you a few difficult questions. I feel ashamed to disturb you, Master. Master nodded at Kinzo. Over these past few years, I have also neglected your teachings. The two master and disciple arrived at the willow tree by the lake. Master spoke first. If I cannot pass the heavenly tribulation, I entrust little Peak and Kaya to you. Kinzo immediately became anxious and said, Master, how can you say such a thing? You used to say so frequently. If a person doesn't even have this bit of confidence, how do we face the trials and cultivation trials given by the Great Path? Master sighed and said, You have a timid and cowardly personality. Instead, you are teaching me. Kinzo quickly got to the point. The spirit returns to its essence, and the energy returns to its source. The 5 chi return to their source, completing the heavenly cycle effortlessly. What should be done? Master was briefly puzzled by this sentence. Master had a sudden flash of inspiration and entered the state of sudden enlightenment. Kinzo looked pensive as he gazed at Master. If Master could have half of his sudden enlightenment, it would be great. He wouldn't have to remind Master so subtly. This is the second plan. He wants to enhance Master's own strength, enhance Master's insight and understanding of the Great Path. Here is the excellent third plan. I saw Kinzo take out a piece of falling thunderwood from the treasure bag. This is a commonly used material for setting up the thunder formation that can channel the power of thunder. 7 Thunder Gathering Divine Iron. It is also a commonly used treasure for setting up the thunder formation. It can store the power of scattered thunder to help cross the tribulation. According to the knowledge he possesses, if he can create a secondary transfer lightning rod, when the body of the one crossing the tribulation is struck by the heavenly tribulation, most of the power of thunder can be drawn out from the person crossing the tribulation. In this way, it may increase the chances of successfully crossing the tribulation. Kaya just asked what was happening, and she was locked in an iron cage by her own senior brother. She became a guinea pig to verify this technological achievement. Kinzo took out the thunder curse and gave a warning to Kaya. Don't touch those nets around you. Later, Kinzo threw out a talisman. The sky cleared in an instant. Several bolts of lightning struck directly above the falling thunderwood in the iron cage. The 7 thunder-gathering divine iron surrounding it immediately channels the thunder into the earth. Kaya, who was huddled up holding her head, slowly lifted her head. She looked at the scene in front of her with amazement. What a treasure! It can actually resist thunder. Practice has proved that this thing works well. I just don't know how it would fare against a real heavenly tribulation. As long as it can help Master resist the first thunder, the rest should be manageable. Junior sister would never have imagined. Her senior brother actually emerged from underground. You really are something. At this moment, Kaya is somewhat angry. You are my senior brother. How could you use me as a guinea pig and then hide far away yourself? Can't you change to a fish next time? Kinzo smiled and said, Isn't it nice to get you involved too? It is our duty as disciples to help Master cross the tribulation. Let's strike while the iron is hot, and do it a few more times, just in case. Kaya's face instantly turned pale at the thought. A moment later, lightning flashed again at Little Peak. The commotion continued for a full 3 days, until Master woke up from sudden enlightenment. Master looked at the originally beautiful mountain peaks. At this moment, they had turned into ruins. He was so angry that even his nose started running. Master threw a fist at Kinzo's head. Don't you focus on cultivating with junior sister instead of messing around. Kaya quickly defended senior brother. Senior brother helped you make a treasure to resist the heavenly tribulation. It took dozens or even hundreds of lightning strikes to turn into this. Master's face suddenly changed dramatically after hearing this. He stood motionless in place. Kinzo thought that Master was deeply moved, but Master's next words almost scared him to death. My heavenly tribulation has arrived, he said. At that moment, the smile on Kinzo's face disappeared instantly. There were still many plans that he had not prepared, but at this moment, there was no other way. He immediately took out the immortal melting pill that he had prepared long ago. He told Master that this pill was refined with all his efforts and thoughts. After the first heavenly tribulation passed, if he felt that he couldn't resist the next heavenly tribulation, he would immediately take it. Master pushed him away and said, Keep this pill for yourself. Just use it when you are crossing the tribulation in the future. No need to waste this pill on me. Kinzo became anxious immediately after hearing this. If Master you do not accept this pill, I will destroy it now. Then he was still afraid that Master would refuse, and he revealed his trump card. Moreover, I still have 11 of these pills. Master was almost moved to tears after hearing the first half of his sentence. However, the second half of the sentence once again left the disciple speechless as always, watching the increasing number of thunderclouds in the sky. Kinzo couldn't help but exclaim that this is not right. How did this heavenly tribulation come so suddenly without any warning? But now, we can't worry about that anymore. He directly pushed Master into the newly prepared iron cage. Later, he instructed Master that the pill must be taken after the first heavenly tribulation. Rain looked up at the sky, determination flashing in his eyes. I will also give it all I've got this time. Suddenly, a dragon's roar echoed across the sky. A crimson dragon appeared above the dark clouds. Then, a dragon claw fiercely slapped onto the mountain protection formation. The person in charge of the Immortal Salvation sect came out to respond. Isn't this Master's tribulation cloud? Kaya looked at senior brother Kinzo with a puzzled expression, resting one hand against his forehead. His face was filled with a speechless look. And Master in the iron cage directly feigned unconsciousness. He actually mistook the dark clouds accompanying the crimson dragon as thunder tribulation. He embarrassed himself this time. At this moment, the crimson dragon is constantly circling outside the sect formation. The pressure of the heaven immortal pervades all corners of the immortal sect through the formation. I saw a figure standing with hands behind the back, looking at the little dragon in front, who didn't know the immensity of heaven and earth. This person is the master of the Jioshin Immortal Salvation Sect, Heaven Immortal Asher. The haughty red-scaled azure dragon looked at him. You are the one in charge of the Immortal Salvation sect. Asher didn't even look at him. The plain voice instantly spread inside and outside the formation. I'm just a casual cultivator from the sect. It's not my turn to take charge of the Immortal Salvation sect. I just feel that your little dragon is too disrespectful. I came out specifically to teach you a lesson. Bold. The Crimson Dragon roared angrily in the clouds. It was about to attack Asher directly. Asher's killing intent burst out instantly. Facing this overwhelming attack, he simply extended one finger. The next second, the giant dragon claw stopped abruptly in midair, unable to descend any further. You just attained the status of Heaven Immortal and dare to act arrogantly in my Immortal Salvation sect. Are you bored, Asher? He lightly flicked his finger. The mountain-like dragon claw instantly shattered, exploding into the sky filled with clouds and mist. The Crimson Dragon screamed in pain. This human race immortal is too terrifying. The Crimson Dragon was scared by a single blow, hastily invoking its own background. I am a special envoy of the East Sea Dragon Palace, the commander-in-chief of the Dragon Palace Water Army. You are so rude. I will inform the Dragon King that in a few days, we will gather our troops and horses to crush this little mountain gate of yours. Asher looked at him coldly. My Immortal Salvation sect is also part of the human race lineage. We benefit from the protection of the human race's luck. Could it be that you, as the vanguard, intentionally want to provoke a conflict between us human race, cultivators, and your dragon race? Crimson Dragon was suddenly shocked, but dared not speak rashly. The present is different from the past. During the Great War of the Witch Clan, the human race was still weak. But now, the human race is the protagonist of the world. Our prosperity far surpasses that of the ancient Witch Clan. It says it can't compete verbally, and it can't win in a fight. There is no one to support it behind the scenes either. Crimson Dragon hastily dropped an invitation card. After 3 years, a demon-slaying convention will be held on the shore of the East Sea, inviting all immortal sects of the Godland to gather. With that said, it hurriedly fled. The Crimson Dragon intended to show its might to the Immortal Salvation sect, but ended up in a sorry state, fleeing in embarrassment. Kaya watched as Asher left. She quietly asked Senior Brother, "Is this the world of the strong?" Kenzo, in his eyes, was not considered a strong person. He was merely a skilled fighter. On the other hand, Master was getting ready to slip away sneakily. The two of them laughed heartily, leaning forward and backward. Time flies by. In the blink of an eye, it's already a year and 9 months later. At this moment, the sky is filled with flashing lightning and rolling thunder, with tribulation cloud densely gathered. This heavenly tribulation is real this time. Kenzo has done everything that he should do. The next top priority task is to observe and record the process of his master crossing the tribulation up close. Take thorough notes to lay a solid foundation for a 100% success rate in your own heavenly tribulation in the future. To attain immortality, there are only 9 heavenly tribulations. They are determined by the aptitude of the one crossing the tribulation and the potential they have after attaining immortality. Different levels of heavenly tribulation will come down from the sky. The more thunder tribulations there are, the stronger the person's potential is in the future. At the same time, the difficulty will also increase. Rain slightly frowned. He thought it would be the weakest 3 thunder heavenly tribulation, but unexpectedly, he would have to face 5 thunder tribulations. The tribulation cloud kept trembling at this moment. Suddenly, it transformed into a bright lightning pillar and smashed down on Rain's head. When thunder appeared, the heavens and the earth all paled in comparison. The surge containing the greatest principles of heaven and earth, along with the thunder tribulation, came crashing down. Heavenly tribulation that cannot be resisted by magical artifacts according to logic. At this moment, it was completely absorbed by the lightning rod device made by Kenzo. Kaya suddenly exclaimed excitedly, "Senior Brother, look! The birdcage works!" Kenzo didn't have time to be happy yet. He then discovered that the Great Path energy wave was destroying the birdcage. The next second, The birdcage exploded directly. Heaven Path truly does not allow any shortcuts. But that's enough for now. At least, he helped Master withstand the first thunder tribulation. The tribulation of attaining immortality can only be resisted forcibly. Rain's face turned serious as his body slowly rose into the air. He was enduring the terrifying second and third thunder tribulations. At this moment, he is already having some difficulty holding on. In the Great Path, everything revolves according to fate. Even if he were to die, he cannot die in embarrassment before them. He wants his disciples to know that the Master never lacks this firm determination towards the path. Come forth. The power of the Heaven Path heavenly tribulation gathers madly. The fourth wave of the heavenly tribulation descends directly. Rain looks up and roars angrily. He appears as if he were the Grim Reaper. The thunder tribulation instantly blasted a big pit into the ground. And at this moment, he only had one last breath left. Master. Master woke up drowsily to the sound of his disciple calling him. He gritted his teeth. He took out the pill that Kinzo had given him. Master didn't hesitate to put the pill into his mouth. But the next second, Master looked at his body in surprise. What's going on? Why am I starting to melt? What did Kinzo give me to eat? After a while, Master dissolved between heaven and earth, turning into a puddle of blood. Then, 3 colored immortal lights descended from the clouds. The clear and turbid energies slowly gathered. His body began to reshape gradually. He was surrounded by fluttering petals, and a lotus bloomed on top of his head. Warrior transformation into a pure immortal. It's unbelievable that there are still people who can refine this pill. The onlookers were amazed. Unpure immortal is actually no different from most immortals. Rain always thought of using the heavenly tribulation to die for his beliefs. However, he ignored the efforts of 2 disciples who wanted him to stay alive. He left behind tears of joy. Then figures flew in from all directions. They congratulated Rain repeatedly. Impure Immortal had a merry few tens of thousands of years as an immortal too. At this moment, Master is accepting congratulations in the crowd. He suddenly heard Kinzo's voice transmission. If someone asks you what pill is used for warrior transformation, say it is the immortal melting pill, and the method to use the immortal melting pill is in the corner of the second-to-last bookshelf in the Taoist Cannon Hall. If someone asks if Master has any spare immortal melting pills left, you can promise a maximum of 3. This thing easily brings trouble, so be cautious. After saying this, Kinzo went to contemplate Master's experience of crossing the tribulation. This person not only achieves sudden enlightenment as easily as drinking water, and the lotus all over his body at this moment is actually many times more than the Master after attain immortality. With Master's experience of crossing the tribulation this time, Kinzo has gained a better grasp of the heavenly tribulation. Once he accumulates more profound strength, he won't need to suppress the realm to start crossing the tribulation, but crossing the tribulation cannot be done within the sect. Otherwise, at least half of the hard-earned trump cards accumulated over the years would be exposed. Kinzo had entered the state of sudden enlightenment as he kept thinking. He suddenly looked startled while practicing breathing and meditation. Someone had arrived. He quickly dissipated the lotus around him, and sealed off the aura that had almost been exposed just now. In his mind, he thought, it seems he still needs to go to the underground secret room for cultivation. Indeed, it is worthy of you. The visitor is none other than Jace, your master, who is hosting a banquet to entertain guests. Yet you are hiding here, sleeping in laziness. Your junior sister's slim legs almost ran off. Kinzo could only smile awkwardly. Jace took out a jade token. He threw the jade token to Kinzo. Have a look. What is this? Don't accuse me of only hanging out with you to drink your wine. Not giving benefits to your wine and meat buddy. This item is the Immortal Salvation Sect Peak Suppressing Tau Legacy. The Scripture of Non-Action, Volume 1. Kinzo was somewhat surprised. Is it appropriate for senior sect uncle? Jace looked at him thoughtfully. What's inappropriate about that? With your talent and cultivation achievement, you are completely capable. I remember last time you drank with me, it seems like you had a breakthrough in a small stage. When was the last time? Kinzo remembered it. He remembered now. It turns out he got drunk with senior sect uncle last time. He suddenly felt a sensation and accidentally broke through on the spot. And Jace recalled the scene at that time. He was almost scared to death at that time. Giving a reward for enlightenment truly makes him a divine person. Looking at Kinzo's distressed expression, Jace appeared somewhat smug and relieved. Don't worry, I did not reveal the fact that your cultivation achievement has already reached stage 6 of the Return to Void level. The scripture of non-action is something I worked hard to obtain for you. How about you? Do you want to cultivate? No merit, no reward. How could Kinzo not know what he's up to? It's nothing but the demon-slaying convention invited by the EC Dragon Palace. Compared to the treasure of cultivating, Kinzo is more focused on the demon-slaying convention. He is even less willing to expose his true strength. You do observe carefully, Jay seems a bit helpless. Actually, I didn't want to trouble you this time. But there aren't many clever disciples in this generation. The most experienced writer in handling matters now has grass 3 feet high on his grave. Others in the sect do not know that you, Kinzo, have a lot of bad intentions. And this time, my master is personally leading the team. There is definitely security guaranteed. But no matter what he says, Kinzo still upholds the determination to peak survive until death. Jay sighed. He was also not someone facing insurmountable difficulties. Just need to check and make up for any deficiencies in the ranking of sect disciples. This ranking needs to be remade. Kinzo surrendered without hesitation when he heard it. The next day, Emi also found Kinzo's residence. Junior sister immediately became unhappy on the spot. They all came to look for their own senior brother. Senior brother only went out once, and was immediately targeted by the 2 beauties who were with him at the time. How unfair. Moreover, these 2 beauties are getting kaguya by the minute. No contrast, no harm done. The story of watermelons and washboards. Junior sister felt so frustrated that she almost cried. Kaya completely couldn't understand what aspect of his senior brother was so attractive. He clearly has a cautious and timid personality who fears death and values life. How could there be other women besides her who are interested in him? Moreover, this woman is still the most dazzling star among the disciples of the same generation. A master's junior has already put enormous pressure on herself. Suddenly, an Emi falls from the sky. Kaya can't help but grit her teeth. Indeed, she must do whatever it takes to defeat senior brother as soon as possible. Otherwise, she will have more worries as the night gets longer. Emi originally came to express gratitude. But at this moment, Kinzo is in seclusion. So the 3 women staged a play. They started playing Kinzo's self-created casual card game, Immortal World Monopoly. Gradually, the grass hut was filled with laughter and joy. The previous embarrassment had long disappeared. At dusk, Kinzo spotted Emi's figure from afar. He could see with his spiritual sense that the room was in a mess at this moment. The floor was full of bottles. 2 women were sleeping heavily in different positions. Emi appeared more refined, just holding a pink bra in her hand. They seemed to be having a great time. Kinzo was speechless. Suddenly, a breaking sound came from the sky. Kinzo casually took the jade sword, and a voice came from inside the jade sword. Little Peak, Kinzo, come quickly to the Hall of Wonders for a meeting. This gathering is for the EC Demon Slaying Convention. Kinzo is hiding in the crowd to avoid drawing too much attention to himself. Indeed, he has not been discovered by anyone. Elder was reading out the mission on the stage one by one. Suddenly his gaze swept over the 10 people below the stage. Then he glanced at Kinzo in the corner. He quickly corrected himself, saying, "You 11 people. You have the highest level of cultivation achievement among the disciples of the present generation. You are also the most agile individuals. Remember, you must not disgrace the reputation of our immortal salvation sect. And you must not lose our demeanor." Later he pondered for a while before saying, There is one more thing. It was personally instructed by Asher. When Little Peak, Kinzo heard his own name being mentioned by the elder, he knew he was in trouble. As expected, when the elder told him, "This time when we go out, all the young disciples will need to follow your orders. You will be the leader of the young disciples." Kinzo's mouth twitched abruptly. Can this be right? Everyone's gaze gathered in one place for a moment. Large question marks loomed over everyone's heads. Kinzo quietly grumbled, "Why would a disciple of Return to Void Realm Stage 2 be selected as the leader?" Definitely intentional. Jace is definitely intentional. This Jace is forcing him to reveal his cards. Originally Kinzo thought he could just mix in and be done with it. Anyway, he had the support of the big boss. He used to think he wouldn't lose out on this, but now it seems he is losing a lot. You have to hide even if you can't hide. Following his consistent principles, Kinzo promptly declined. Elder is a little dissatisfied at the moment. You seem to have some doubts about Asher's order. I dare not, but this matter seems a bit suspicious. Kinzo's reaction was extremely fast. He immediately came up with a good idea. May I ask boldly? Was the decree given by Master in person, or was it conveyed by Jace, senior sect uncle, on his behalf? After confirming that it was conveyed by Jace, Kinzo's heart relaxed slightly. Then he revealed a mischievous smile. If Jace strikes first, don't blame me, senior sect uncle. Next, he began his Oscar-winning performance. With a look of shame on his face, I don't hide it from you, elder. I always drink with Jace, senior sect uncle. Once, after getting drunk with senior sect uncle, I jokingly asked him to help me make a name for myself. I never imagined that senior sect uncle would take it seriously, and actually made such arrangements. I am incompetent, and dare not take on tasks recklessly. Please enlighten me, elder. Everyone suddenly realized what was going on. They all felt that this disciple was being taken advantage of by Jace. It was quite difficult. The hostility in their eyes gradually dissipated. At this moment, there was more sympathy for Kinzo. Jace, who is thousands of miles away. He couldn't help but sneeze. He didn't know that Kinzo had already ruined his reputation at this moment. Elder also knew that this matter was no child's play. He had just decided to find another person. Suddenly, Emmy stepped forward saying, I am willing to take on this heavy responsibility. Kinzo was momentarily stunned. What's happening today? Junior sister understands his intentions so well. But before he could even feel happy, the next moment, Emmy then suggested that the elder appoint 2 team leaders. I will take the role along with senior brother Kinzo. This way, both needs can be met. At that moment, Kinzo's face twisted with anger. It seems that Emmy is still Emmy. Just at that moment, Emmy's gaze was full of determination. Hand it over to me, Kinzo. I will definitely not make it difficult for you. I really thank you. At this moment, Kinzo felt completely speechless. The team leader had already been kicked out of this job. He didn't expect to be kicked back in by Emmy. She sealed the door shut while she was at it, with 2 heavenly immortal level seals. Fortunately, he had already shifted the blame to Jace, portraying himself as an innocent victim of being played with miserably. Jace did this in order to quickly gain Sect's attention. But from Kinzo's perspective, it's pure chaos. Having 1 less card in his hand means additional danger in his eyes. And the matter of his master being injured in his early years. Only he knows best that master was harmed by his own people. Asher's family started high and rose fast. Sky Peak, the strongest, makes Jace completely unable to see the petty tricks within the sect. So Kinzo had to be on guard, especially in this seemingly peaceful environment. At least keep 2 or 3 cards for yourself, and add a base card worth 10,000 later. He actually wants to write a thank you speech to the Heavenly Tribulation at this moment. He wants to thank Senior Heaven Path for taking time out of his busy schedule to personally strike him. In line with the principle of believing that it is better to believe it exists than to believe it does not, he also plans to outline a set of guidelines for himself to follow when facing the Heavenly Tribulation. He must remind himself constantly. Do not raise the middle finger. Do not curse loudly. Do not criticize heaven path in your heart. Remind yourself repeatedly that heavenly tribulation is an opportunity given to you. It is a chance where risks and opportunities coexist. Goodness. His level of enlightenment is considered top-notch in the world of cultivation. Kinzo plans to secretly cross the tribulation when he goes to the East Sea this time. In the days leading up to his departure, he spent most of his time cultivating the scripture of non-action, steadily cultivating to perfection. His certainty in overcoming the heavenly tribulation should be around 95%. However, this is not enough for him. The goal he set for himself is to face the strongest ninefold thunder tribulation to ensure zero mistakes. He has started developing a new set of collapsible birdcage designs. He has such a divine artifact. His grasp of the heavenly tribulation has improved again. But what he wants is a 100% success rate. Kinzo feels that crossing the tribulation is a job that should not be rushed. He still needs to prepare meticulously a few more times. For days passed in the blink of an eye. Several big shots sat on Bayun Mountain guarding the disciples of the sect. Kinzo sat closest to Asher. In case of an emergency, he would be the first one to be rescued. At the same time, Emmy came over and asked Kinzo, "Can I sit here, senior brother?" Kinzo was a bit speechless and thought to himself, "Just sit down if you want. I'll move in a bit." However, on the surface, he still agreed. But he pointed to a slightly further place with his finger. Kinzo glanced at her and noticed unexpectedly that she was wearing a pair of transparent gloves on her hands. This girl is quite thoughtful. Emmy now intentionally or unintentionally wants to exchange a few words with Kinzo. But Kinzo responds to such a beautiful woman with nothing but perfunctory replies. Nevertheless, he has also incurred the jealousy of many male disciples. To avoid provoking hatred, Kinzo simply turned his head away. Kinzo looked at the beautiful scenery and chatted awkwardly with Emmy, until Emmy ran out of topics. Emmy tried hard to keep the conversation going. Unfortunately, most of her life experiences were about cultivate, and she couldn't recite a passage from the Tao Te Ching on the spot. Perhaps she was just finding it too difficult to ponder. Kinzo also felt somewhat unwilling. Take care of yourself first. Later on, junior sister, you still have a heavy responsibility to shoulder. Speaking of which, why must the young disciples sent out by each immortal sect this time be people under the age of 150? Because the dragon egg of the dragon takes at least 150 years to hatch, while the young dragon is essentially cultivating inside the dragon egg. The young dragon of the Dragon Palace displays extraordinary strength as soon as it hatches. If they cultivate for 100 years, they can attain immortality, especially if they have the bloodline of the Dragon King. They will also possess powerful symbiosis abilities. So the Dragon Palace always lets the young dragons come out to show off their strength, using this opportunity to ridicule the human cultivators. Kinzo faces the continuous flirting of the iceberg beauty. Kinzo still adheres to his own principles. He absolutely cannot give up Taoist heart just because the other party is a beautiful woman. It's not good to attract too much hatred. At the same time, less than a kilometer away from the Dragon Palace, suddenly huge water lotuses continuously emerge from the water surface. This is the ancient formation that the Dragon Palace takes pride in. Subsequently, accompanied by the blossoming of the lotus, one after another, the dragon's roar resounded through the sky, only to see several massive dragons flying up and down around the lotus. And around the lotus, 3,000 immortal flood dragons guard it evenly. They are responsible for maintaining order at this demon-slaying convention. After the immortal flood dragon soldiers suspended in midair, they each dispersed their momentum. The scene instantly became even more spectacular. Dragon is indeed a camel that starved to death, but is bigger than a horse. Kinzo secretly sighed in his heart. They are absolutely not to be enemies with, nor do they need to be friends. It's best not to get involved with their karma. And at this moment, everyone is discussing it one after another. They believe that Dragon Palace likes to show off its power with these false pretenses. Who doesn't know about Dragon's current predicament? From Dragon's current performance. Dragon, the former overlord of the world, still seems unwilling to fade into obscurity. Although they still qualify as powerful now. Think back to before they confer the title of God. That was the existence of the ancient three giants. Kinzo sighed deeply in his heart. He firmly made up his mind not to go out and explore until he reached the Great Luo Golden Immortal level. Suddenly, a golden turtle appeared in front of everyone. The turtle chancellor standing on both sides made a gesture of invitation. Immortal sect elders, please proceed to the upper immortal platform. Disciples, please take your seats around. This scene looked quite comical. After everyone took their seats, they all curiously tasted the delicious food from the Dragon Palace. Kinzo is the only one looking around nervously. In every new environment, the first thing he does is to look for the nearest exit. Especially in the Dragon Palace's territory. Not to mention that dragons are of a different race, and the human race conflicts with them in interests. Danger could strike at any time. Although there is water everywhere in this place, wind escape is more suitable for escaping here, because the winds are stronger at sea. Suddenly, a series of loud noises kept ringing out while he was thinking. Kinzo was completely dumbfounded. Can't people be a bit more discreet when passing gas in public places? He didn't even have a chance to complain. The next moment, Julia unleashed a deafening thunder. Its power was truly terrifying. Kinzo was speechless. It was truly embarrassing to the extreme. And at this moment, that icy beauty's face turned bright red. She was trying hard to control the gas about to erupt within her body. After all, in everyone's impression, fairies do not fart. Fortunately, the Dragon Palace was just teasing people and did not directly poison anyone. Otherwise, relying on this group of teammates, Kinzo might as well just go die. While no one was around, the sect elder quickly set up an isolation formation. This formation is meant for disciples to fart. Even though the apprentice was not lucky, and was tricked by the Dragon Palace from the beginning. But everyone became more cautious because of this. The following days were uneventful. Dragon performed various talents for 3 days and 3 nights. The crowd went from excited on the first day to listless on the second day. By the third day, they simply fell asleep. Kinzo, on the other hand, didn't care. He was always thinking about how to become an actor and how to lose to the weakest person. 230 years ago, Anthony had his own consciousness inside the dragon egg. From then on, various teachers began to instill in him that dragons were the most powerful race in the world. They are natural powerhouses and the true masters of the world. And he is the second dragon son, the contemporary dragon king. Their bloodline passed down from their ancestors is even purer. It is very likely to impact the legendary Great Lu realm. But Anthony remembers it clearly. One day, a drunken teacher once revealed the truth. He told him many things about the dragon's unbearable situation. In fact, the dragon had long been lonely, with saints in the sky and the human race on earth. The ancient war between the two races caused countless creatures to suffer. And the dragon also bears the responsibility that can never be washed away for eternity. They are rejected by heaven and earth. Their luck has been sealed off by the heaven path. Since then, Anthony discovered a sad fact. Nowadays, most of the dragon tribes still cling to the ancient dream of dominance. They believe that the dragon tribe is the strongest. For this reason, they constantly promote the use of force. But they dare not truly go to war with the human race. In plain terms, he is just a puppet that his own kind has high hopes for, continuing to act as a puppet that upholds the dignity of the hegemon. Today, Anthony is about to do something significant. He intends to openly lose to the weakest member of the Immortal Salvation sect. He wants to wake up those tribesmen who are intoxicated by ancient dreams. At the same time, Kinzo, who was feeling bored, suddenly felt that a gaze was staring at him. And this gaze belongs to Anthony, the son of the Dragon King. At this moment, his heart is full of doubt. Are you feeling unwell? Are you okay? Kinzo still has some doubts that the sons of the Dragon King will come to challenge him to engage in a duel. No, absolutely not. This little dragon would never do that. Anthony reached out and pointed a finger at Kinzo's direction. It's you. You will engage in a duel with me now. Kinzo is very speechless. Why does this world have so much malice towards him? There are at least 7,000 to 8,000 cultivators present. How did he attract attention in the vast crowd? At this moment, waves of immortal sense and spiritual sense are probing towards him. Kinzo really wants to rush up and tear Anthony's mouth apart. Then stuff a few immortal melting pills and demon-suppressing bone-corroding pills into it. However, he still politely declined on the surface. But he didn't expect that this imperial prince would still persist relentlessly. Where exactly did I go wrong? He was just about to resort to stubbornly arguing with me, insisting on engaging in a duel. But the next second, the sect elder also advised him to give it a try. If he realized it was not going well, he could admit defeat. Self-preservation should be the top priority in all things. Kinzo thought that today's main character was Anthony. The other party chose him, probably to ensure a stable victory. Therefore, he decided to go up and give it a try. But he probably never expected that the other person's thoughts were surprisingly the same as his, wanting to lose on purpose. Let's see which of the two can win the Oscar for Best Actor this year. Kinzo and Dragon Prince face off in an intense showdown. Who will be the true Best Actor? At this moment, the two are thinking about how to avoid being discovered by others and losing in the duel. Anthony is thinking that he must show great momentum. The one who loses will suffer a miserable defeat. Come on, come and defeat me face to face so that you can strike against Dragon Palace and its people. Kinzo, on the other hand, had a sudden convulsion. The other party's aggressive gaze. Is it because I am not an immortal seed? If he killed me directly, the immortal sect's reaction wouldn't be too severe. This can also appease the Dragon Palace. This way, I have to hide my cultivation achievement and also pay attention to safety. The difficulty is a bit high. Kinzo currently conceals his cultivation, using his own unique turtle breath and chi regulation technique to perfectly match his performance in Stage 2 of the Return to Void, and making every effort to do so. Anthony takes a step forward at this moment. His momentum reached its peak directly. It looks like he's going to tear Kinzo apart. Hold on, Kinzo shouted loudly. Anthony almost couldn't stop the car in time. Next, Kinzo could be heard slowly muttering, "Engage in a duel. Then we should establish some rules first." Starting to engage in a duel without any rules like this may not be in line with the strict style of doing things at the Dragon Palace. Anthony's face immediately darkened. Why is this person so troublesome? So after they laid down some rules, engage in a duel became much more formal. Anthony made a second attempt to charge. But before Kinzo could halt him once again at a key point for his spiritual power operation, he resorted to the same old trick. This time, it almost caused Anthony's aura to reverse. Kinzo chuckled. "Prince, your highness, how about we settle this with a literary duel?" Anthony angrily cursed. He dashed forward with dark eyes swirling around his body. Kinzo hurriedly activated the soaring dragon cloud-seeking steps, appearing as if he was about to be defeated immediately. Anthony's face turned black with anger. What's going on? Is it so difficult to counterattack head-on? Is he too aggressive? He must have frightened the other person. Anthony starts to slow down his pace. Every time he charges, he is full of momentum. But once he gets in front of Kinzo, he unintentionally slows down his punching speed. Then, he deliberately exposes his vulnerability to invite a strike. Kinzo continues to dodge. Anthony was left baffled by this move. Can you strike me down? As you wish. Kinzo doesn't want to lose too quickly. This will allow those who are observant to see something. He casually threw out a few talismans and made hand seals with both hands. He sprayed out a series of fiery snakes towards the front. Anthony rushed straight towards him without even trying to dodge. These are all child's play in his eyes. He decided to perform again to make the battle more exciting. His figure instantly broke through these ordinary flames. Kinzo first appeared very shocked. Then his expression gradually became panicked. His footsteps were also somewhat awkward. Anthony took a look. He immediately launched a close pursuit towards Kinzo. Faced with the flames unleashed by Talisman, he also fully accepted them. At this moment, the two of them went all out in using Talisman, one going all out in ranged attacks, and the other engaging in a frenzied close combat. The scene was exceptionally explosive. In the blink of an eye, the two sides engaged in dozens of rounds of combat. Anthony found it increasingly strange as the fight went on. He clearly exposed his vulnerabilities to the opponent. But the other party either deliberately avoided his key points, dared not act against him, the Dragon Palace Prince, or truly lacked the strength to seize his weaknesses. Fortunately, he had specifically endured so many attacks. He will soon perform his own act. The ultimate confrontation between the human race and the dragon is terrifying. They not only do not seek victory, but also constantly contemplate how they will be defeated. Let's see which home the Oscar Best Actor award will go to. At this moment, Kinzo is standing at the edge of the ring. He has been pushed into a corner. The script has played out almost to its end. It's time to wrap it up. Heavenly Dawn 5 Thunder Mystic Art. The lighting flashed on the stage for a moment. This can only be considered a slightly higher level method in the Immortal sect. It is not too powerful. The two collided with each other. Their facial expressions can definitely be described as Best Actor level. Anthony's natural, sensitive combat instinct at this moment. Surprisingly, he felt a hint of danger. At the same time, Kinzo was also a little confused. This guy's fist seemed to have no strength at all. Even so, Kinzo still wants to claim the title of Best Actor. He staggered backwards, his body leaning back, taking a few steps back. He used a clever move, gently pushing aside Anthony's punch. Then he pretended to slip under his feet. He happened to fall right at the boundary he had marked earlier. It has to be you. No one can beat you when it comes to being shameless. Kinzo coughed a few times in a hurry. His face was full of a look of disappointment. I lost again. My skills are not as good as others. I need to go back and cultivate well. Maybe I feel that my acting skills are not enough. He gave himself internal injuries by holding it in. A mouthful of blood spurted out. This move completely confused Anthony. Anthony was planning to admit defeat in this move as well. But now, Kinzo unexpectedly surrendered first. Everyone was dumbfounded. He still hasn't snapped out of it until now. He actually surrendered even faster than admitting defeat himself. What on earth is going on with this person? Doesn't this cultivator want to win? Meanwhile, Turtle Chancellor was excitedly shouting on the side. Congratulations, Prince Your Highness, this match is won by our prince. Before he could finish speaking, Anthony went crazy. Waking up Dragon perfectly is the most important step. How could you concede defeat early, you lad? I even leaned my face over for you to hit. You really have no sense of sportsmanship. Anthony suddenly tilted his head back and sprayed dragon blood wildly. I apologize for being unable to describe the vastness of the volume of that blood. He cried out in unwillingness, exclaiming the power of the impressive talisman method. I am not your match. After saying that, his body fell straight down. He fell unconscious in a pool of blood. Life is like a play, and success depends on acting skills. Kinzo is completely confused right now. Dragon Bro, your acting skills are obviously not up to par. At best, it can be considered entry level. In an instant, a group of dragon sages swarmed around. Chancellor was at a loss. Because the dragon blood sprayed was just too exaggerated. He couldn't control it at all. Kinzo felt the gazes of many sages from the Dragon Palace locked onto himself. The hostility was becoming stronger. What exactly does the Prince of Dragon Palace plan to accomplish with his confusing behavior? This person's acting is really fake. But after all, his identity is there. Kenzo quickly pondered a countermeasure. He, as a qualified oddball, must be adept at disguising himself. But Emmy does not think so. Anyone who dares to bully her husband will be shown no mercy. They saw a Dragon Palace sage looking at them with hostility. Julia quickly stood in front of Kenzo. After all, no one knows the extent of the Dragon Prince's injuries now. If anything unexpected happens, the dragon will definitely not let it go easily. Julia asked with concern about how Kenzo is doing. If something happens to Kenzo, 100 lives will not be enough for the other party. He is currently calculating his response in his heart. Then the Shadow Emperor came online again. He first lowered himself with a look of shame. Then he began to flatter both Prince Your Highness and the dragon. Immediately after, his face changed to a look of concern and worry. He attributed Prince's injury to aura disarray caused by his excessive strength. He even pretended to ask Masters Jr. for help in diagnosing. Inside the Dragon Palace, sages are as numerous as clouds. How could they fail to diagnose such a minor illness? But his actions just praised the dragon. He infected everyone with his sincere attitude. The Dragon Palace's sages' hostility towards him instantly decreased significantly. Soon after, the Turtle Chancellor, who initially supported Anthony, breathed a sigh of relief. Your Highness's spiritual power just momentarily went off track. He fainted but should wake up unharmed later. As for the competition, how should it be counted? Fortunately, Kenzo doesn't need to worry about it this time. An elder from the Immortal Salvation sect stepped forward. Naturally, Prince Your Highness won. The result is clear at a glance. In addition, here is the Immortal Sect's secret chi pill room as a token of goodwill from our Immortal Salvation sect. The Dragon Palace General has accepted the pill room, so the matter concludes with Anthony's victory. However, he was still unconscious when carried away. If he found out, he would probably be outraged directly. Anthony vomited so much dragon blood in just 1 second. Julia looks at Kenzo with disappointment, saying, "You're just not making any progress. Why did you jump out of bounds? Just stayed there for a while earlier. You might have won directly." No. I really couldn't hold on at that time." Kenzo was a bit speechless. He just wanted to be quiet and peaceful. At this time, disciples of the sect spoke up for Kenzo one after another. It's clear that the Dragon Palace Prince is deliberately trying to cause trouble, and he deliberately chose Kenzo. Just watch later. I will definitely let the dragon who appears later know how powerful we are. And Emmy remained silent. She took out a handkerchief at this moment. She was constantly wiping her long sword. The expression on her face had already turned extremely cold. Especially her gaze seemed as if she wanted to swallow dragon alive. Kenzo was extremely scared. He was so frightened that he didn't dare to breathe. However, after some thought, he decided to pass on a word of advice. This is the Dragon Palace. We don't need to confront them head-on. If Ju, your sister, wants to take action, she still needs to exercise some restraint. Emmy did not change her mind because of Kenzo's advice. She decided to change her mind. Those who dare to bully her husband will be killed without mercy. At the Dragon Palace meeting that day, Immortal Salvation sect disciple Emmy stunned the crowd. She excels in swordsmanship and fire control. She even captured 4 immortal treasures. She defeated dozens of cultivators and injured 4 young dragon returned to Path Realm cultivators. She rose to fame in the Eastern continent from then on. The Dragon Palace's arena competition offers 12 levels of immortal treasure as the ultimate reward. Engage in a duel to defend and challenge the arena. If someone can defend the arena 9 times in a row and defeat the arena master sent by the Dragon Palace, they can claim the immortal treasure. The arena master is a group of young dragons. Cultivation achievement is equivalent to a return to Path Realm 2nd stage cultivator at a normal level. After the great battle, the younger generation of disciples on the scene looked at her in shock. They don't understand why this woman is fighting so hard. She uses tactics of sacrificing herself to kill 1,000 enemies. Emmy puts the immortal treasure she obtained into her bag. Then, under the amazed gaze of everyone, she dragged her exhausted body step by step towards Kenzo. She gently placed the immortal treasure in front of the man. But the consumption of spiritual power is significant. Her delicate body can no longer support it. Kenzo reached out to help her. But Emmy knew that Kenzo couldn't touch a woman's illness. She summoned up the last bit of strength. She braced her palm against the table. She hastily dodged. At this moment, Kenzo's gaze is extremely complex. Words can no longer express his inner feelings. He started to get angry when Emmy came to find him. He just wanted to be left alone. He really didn't want this trouble. But gradually he was influenced by this strong-willed and passionate woman. Thus, Kenzo could only clench his fist deeply as he watched Emmy's back. The falling flowers show love, while the flowing water is indifferent. In another magnificent underwater palace, lying on a large bed, Prince suddenly opened his eyes. He reached out and grabbed the maid beside him, excitedly asking, "Did I lose? Did I lose?" The maid was dumbfounded. He shouldn't have asked. "Did I win, Your Highness?" "You don't need to worry. You won this round." "What? How could it be?" "I clearly." Anthony looked extremely stunned. The next second, a scream was heard in the room. "Come quickly. Your Highness has passed out again." The battle between Kenzo and Anthony's epilepsy has been going on for 3 days. The demon-slaying convention has also ended successfully. The fake leader Kenzo sits in the corner. At this point, he has already been considered honorably discharged. No one will pay attention to him anymore. This little disturbance has also temporarily come to an end. From this bizarre event, Kenzo once again decided to keep a low profile, even lower than before. He lamented that he was still too young. He underestimated the complexity of Dragon Heart. This matter was not thoroughly considered. But who would have thought that Anthony's ways would be so wild? He even wanted to deliberately lose to him. Fortunately, he took a step out of bounds and conceded defeat in advance. Otherwise, I don't know what chaos would have ensued. Next time he decides to face a similar situation, he should just punch himself, beat himself to a serious injury, and then leave the field directly. Emmy collected all 4 treasures she had won and put them into her bag. In front of the crowd, she placed the immortal treasure in front of Kenzo. But these 4 immortal treasures are like a hot potato. He doesn't want them. It's good that Kenzo reacted promptly. He immediately asked Julia Masters Jr. to temporarily take care of them after they return. He also asked her to pass it to Emmy's Master Jane Sr. sect uncle. Just left the area of the EC. Julia, now obediently turned back into a gentle fairy, stayed obediently by the master's side. Asher is very satisfied with Kenzo's performance this time. He asked Julia to pass this jade token to him as a reward for this time. Julia quickly flew down from the sky. Her pretty face was full of smiles. Then she couldn't help looking Kenzo up and down. Strange. Why would my master praise you with 2 more words than he praises Emmy? Kenzo couldn't help but be surprised. He quickly waved his hand and declined, not daring to accept it. Could it be that Asher has seen through his true cultivation achievement? It shouldn't be like that. He should question himself why he didn't strive for the glory of the sect, instead of praising him for no reason. Julia told him that Master said the Dragon Palace Prince was intentionally severely injured. He originally wanted to take this opportunity to challenge the Immortal Salvation sect. If you hadn't seen through it and conceded first, we might not be able to return this time. Hearing this, Kenzo felt a huge weight lifted off his heart instantly. He then awakened suddenly. Originally, he thought that Prince just wanted to humiliate the Dragon Palace in return, so that he could reverse the current bad atmosphere of the Dragon Palace. Now he found that the height he stood on was never high enough. He is a bit biased. I really didn't expect such malicious calculations behind this. And Asher actually saw through the whole conspiracy of Dragon Palace. He really deserves the high level and vision of a heaven immortal. It's just so different from the perspectives of these small shrimps. Soon, Julia threw a jade token over. This is for you. It is a reward from the master for you, not included in the rewards of the sect. He hurriedly took the jade token and examined it closely. The jade token actually contains detailed instructions for an advanced thunder technique. True art of Luo Heaven's solar thunder. After a brief moment of contemplation, he quickly handed back the jade token. Instead, he was more interested in the true threefold flame cultivate technique. Julia looked at the centuries-old Kenzo cultivate in shock. She had never heard of such absurd things before. But she still went. Asher paid no attention to it. He also did not take back the jade token. Instead, he also gave him the jade token of true threefold flame. Nowadays, he has obtained the outline of Essence Flame, Divine Flame, Chi Flame, and Cultivate. Kenzo looked excitedly at this true threefold flame. As long as he strengthens his spirit and body according to the ancient records. So when he faces heavenly tribulation in the future, he gained a few more assurances. This trip to the East Sea was really worthwhile. He probably never imagined that one day the illusionary array he set up would trap his own master within it. Above the white clouds, short songs echo. After crossing the tribulation, the Taoist attains immortality. He secluded himself to cultivate for more than 10 years. It must have been quite boring. Just as he was about to push the door open, suddenly he seemed to have remembered something. So he decided to visit Little Peak first, taking a look at the scenery in various places. But what he didn't know was, at this moment, there were many letters left in the house. On the table, on the cushion, on the bed, and at positions where one could see by looking up at the beams. A letter is carefully placed everywhere. Kenzo is afraid that Master won't see it. However, he also miscalculated. He never expected that Master would not reply to his favorite hut. The content of the letter is actually very simple. He was sent to the East Sea and will return in about 7 to 8 days. In the end, he advised Master not to go to the back for the time being. There are many illusionary arrays and spell formations near the newly built pill room. He had already activated most of them before he left. However, there is a spell formation on the outer perimeter of the pill room. Rain Taoist stood there with a distracted look. Is this really the familiar Little Peak to me? He stood there bewildered, looking at the 3 paths in front of him. I won't hide it from everyone. He has been here for several days. However, his level of formation technique is very limited. No matter what, he couldn't find his way out. He could only try to recall the route he had circled before. In a daze, Rain Taoist seemed to have found a new path in his confusion. He moved forward cautiously. This time, he quickly saw a wooden sign. The wooden sign was hanging on the top of a tree in front. The wooden sign reads, "Lost?" Rain nodded subconsciously. Then, he carefully studied that wooden sign. He always had a feeling of familiarity with the handwriting. But he couldn't remember where he had seen it before. Then, he took 2 steps forward. Another wooden sign. What was written on that wooden sign? What are you doing at Little Peak? I just live here. Rain Taoist angrily scolded at the wooden sign. Then he noticed another wooden sign behind the first one, so he took another step forward following the signs. You are a member of my Immortal Salvation sect, and you must comply with the rules and regulations of the sect. You have entered Little Peak without permission. The Taoist at the Little Peak Rain said disdainfully, looking at the sign. Do I still need permission to enter? I am the master of Little Peak. He hadn't walked a few steps when the wooden sign appeared again. Please refrain from damaging even a blade of grass here. This path leads to an open space without a soundproof formation. The Taoist of the Rain pondered silently. Could it be that this is the exit left by the person who set up the formation? He continued to walk along the wooden sign until he was standing in front of a wooden sign. Rain stopped in his tracks. He held his breath subconsciously and took 3 hesitant steps forward. The scenery in front of him changed once again. Where is this place? The original empty space was surrounded by thickets. It appeared in front of Rain. Not far away, there was a low table. Next to it, there was a bucket with a sign that read, "Please wait here if I'm not here. If you can't wait, you can shout outside for someone to come. Little Peak welcomes your visit sincerely. But next time, please come directly. Don't accidentally trespass near the pill room. Master Rain is here at Little Peak to pay respects." Rain's hands trembled. He widened his eyes and pointed at the wooden sign with his fingers. "This turns out to be something I set up myself. Since last time when the spell formation drove Jace Masters Jr. almost crazy, Kinzo made some changes to this chain formation. He left a way out for the guests. He didn't expect that the first person to experience it would be his own master." Rain Taoist's eyes widened. He looked as if he had seen a ghost. This formation turned out to be one that I had set up myself. Could it be that I have encountered something evil? No. Could it be related to the impurity of the impure immortal? The impure immortal is easily contaminated by earth chi. The Tao heart is prone to generating inner demons. Could it be that I am just the inner demon of the true Rain Taoist, causing him to almost lose his mind completely? He covered his ears with both hands, muttering constantly, "The flowing gap of time, impure immortal, inner demon." Then he felt a dizzy spell, suddenly unable to make out who he really was. He abruptly knelt down on the ground, firmly believing that he had entered the flowing gap of time, rather than being an inner demon. Rain Taoist hugged his head with both hands. He suddenly looked up and let out a loud shout. The sudden shout startled flocks of birds near and far around Little Peak. It also caught the attention of a figure passing through the sky in the distance, who curiously glanced at the jungle of Little Peak. Suddenly, a slightly surprised and suspicious female voice came from beside him. "Master!" Rain's shout abruptly stopped. He looked over with joy. He trembled as he asked, "Kaya, Master, are you trapped inside the formation?" Rain, the Taoist, was overjoyed to the point of tears. His eyes were on the verge of overflowing with tears. "You are truly," he said, without waiting for Kaya to respond. Rain Taoist hugged his head and shouted, "No, you might be my inner demon." Kaya was speechless for a while outside the formation. It seems that Master has been messed up by Senior Brother. She immediately had an idea after murmuring softly. She quickly said, "Please don't move. There are many formations inside. I'll go in and find you." Fortunately, Senior Brother had also taught her some formation techniques before he left. Rain Taoist was slightly stunned for a moment. This arrangement was made by Kinzo. Rain Taoist's eyes were filled with confusion. He also fell into contemplation about himself. Gradually, he calmed down. Half an hour later, Kaya appeared with a body covered in grass chips and fallen leaves. A somewhat disheveled Kaya appeared before Master. "Senior Brother, why have you set up so many traps?" Rain Taoist asked urgently. "These are all arranged by you, Senior Brother," Kaya replied. "I should say they were designed by Senior Brother. It was Immortal Julia from Sky Peak, Masters Jr., who set them up." Rain Taoist was surprised. "So this was designed by Kinzo," Kaya said proudly. "Julia, Masters Jr., doesn't know formation at all. It was Senior Brother who explained it to Masters Jr. word by word." Kaya paused for a moment, lowered her head, and said, "Master, have you really never noticed?" Rain Taoist looked at Kaya's face and asked, "What have you noticed? Do you like your Senior Brother?" Kaya's face instantly blushed bright red. Actually, what she wanted to tell Master was that Senior Brother is actually more capable and promising than Master had imagined. Kaya successfully entered the illusionary array following the formation technique taught by Senior Brother. She told Master that Senior Brother has actually taught her a lot since she entered the sect. Then she held out 2 fingers and asked Master, "Could you tell me at what stage my cultivation achievement is now?" Rain pondered for a moment and then replied, "Refining Chi Stage 9. Kaya raised both hands and pointed the sword forward. She made a complex hand seal. Her aura suddenly surged around her. What now? Rain's eyes widened. Return to void. Stage 5. Kaya, when will you? She quickly made a hushing gesture. Shortly after, her aura quickly restrained. She whispered, "This is the turtle breath and chi regulation technique passed down by senior brother, which can conceal one's cultivation achievement as long as it is not perceived by those at the immortal level. It can be hidden and simulate the realm one wishes to reveal." The Taoist on her face was filled with shock. "I can't believe there is such a technique. How much did Kinzo hide from me?" After a moment, Rain asked somewhat anxiously, "Kaya, what do you think I should do? Should I praise your senior brother when he returns?" Kaya smirked mischievously and said, "Master, you'd better pretend that I didn't say anything to you today. Senior brother will come in to pick us up later. You just take the whisk and spank him on the butt." The two of them decided to play dumb together. Act in front of Kinzo. Kinzo has not even set foot back from the East Sea. The master's whisk came flying over, and the white net fell. Kinzo was securely tied up by the whisk. He wriggled like a caterpillar from side to side. Kaya reached out eagerly on the side. Kinzo looked on in horror, realizing that he had no chance to resist being controlled by junior sister. This also made it slightly difficult for Kaya to know where to start. She chuckled and raised both hands. In the end, her hands just landed on the spot where senior brother was struck by master. She gently rubbed it. Kinzo looked pleased. In his satisfaction, there was also a hint of helplessness. He earnestly advised with a bitter tone, "A girl must be modest. You may have desires, and you may have preferences. However, as a chi cultivator, you still need to restrain the impulses in your heart. What if this gives rise to an inner demon? What would you say?" "No, I'm just..." Kaya's pretty face turned red in an instant. She was a little flustered, trying to restrain herself as much as possible. She had a hesitant and awkward look, as if she wanted to say something but stopped herself. Kaya looked at him sullenly. "Senior brother, you're bullying people." Later, she didn't say a word and just bit right away. Junior sister must be born in the year of the rabbit, that's why she's so good at biting people. Kinzo yelled in pain. A gentleman fights with his hands, not his mouth. "How come you suddenly started speaking so aggressively? If I can't outtalk you, should I resort to biting you?" Kinzo quickly sought help from Master. "Master, could you please help figure out how junior sister can get married in the future?" Kaya immediately retorted that she wants you to mind your own business. "I will grow old and die at Little Peak." Master didn't say much, just told her to always show respect to senior brother. At the same time, Rain Taoist had already turned and left. He plans to start today to comprehend the method of cultivating the impure immortal in seclusion. Kinzo is responsible for managing everything on Little Peak. Feel free to come and seek me for advice if you have important matters to discuss. The two of them listened attentively to Master's teaching. These words made Kinzo feel like Master knew something. After he left, Kinzo turned around. There was a meaningful look in his eyes. "You told Master, didn't you?" Kaya suddenly felt a little guilty and became evasive for a while. "Just a little bit." Kinzo continued to pursue with a stern face. "Is it really just a little bit?" Kaya, with a strong survival instinct, said loudly, "It must be just a little bit." Then he took Kaya into the house and asked, "What did you tell Master?" As they entered, Kaya's body trembled slightly, and her little face immediately drooped. She instantly switched to a teary-eyed mode and said, "Senior brother, it was actually all because Master forced me to." After she entered her thatched hut, she moved a cushion and sat cross-legged on her knees. She lowered her head and pretended to cry. Her entire movements were seamless. Junior sister beat around the bush while conveying the message to Master. Kinzo couldn't deal with her. He still has to pamper his own junior sister. But he didn't really care in the first place. After all, the junior sister's knowledge is limited. Based on his understanding of Kaya's personality, he had a premonition about today's situation a long time ago. When it is late at night and quiet, the formation around the pill room is completely activated. He sat in the room thinking about the principle of not standing out while bearing the confer the title of God Great Tribulation. Naturally, he hoped to quietly cultivate to the great Luo Golden Immortal within the Immortal sect, but that would require accumulating for a long time. As a part of the Trinity Immortal sect, the Immortal Salvation sect, he is very likely to be affected by the confer the title of God Great Tribulation. This confer the title of God Great Tribulation involves the three realms of existence, and it is a great tribulation specifically for disciples. But Kenzo did have a way to avoid this great tribulation. The only way was to get ashore early. Confer the title of God Great Tribulation is actually the process by which the Heavenly Court's Jade Emperor establishes dominion over heaven and earth. On the surface, the Jade Emperor goes to the Taoist Patriarch to cry out for help. He said that the disciple of the Trinity sect was disrespectful and did not follow the orders of the Heavenly Court in a domineering manner. He, as the ruler of the three realms of existence, has a reputation that does not match reality. He lacks the dignity of a man and cannot even raise his head in front of the Queen Mother of the West's junior sister. The man's power and prestige have been greatly diminished. But from the results of conferring the title of God, disciples of the Trinity sect enter the Heavenly Court as gods. Saints no longer manifest actively in the world. This has solidified the foundation for the management of the three realms of existence by the Heavenly Court. So as long as he infiltrates the Heavenly Court early and becomes an elder during the difficult period of the Heavenly Court, he doesn't need to hold any high position. He can just hide his cultivation achievements and be a low-ranking official. The goal is to be listed in the roster of Heavenly Court Immortals. He failed to confer the title of God during the Great Tribulation. He has long been in the Heavenly Court, and his immortal status has nothing to do with this tribulation. How could the calamity of confer the title of God fall on his head again? So he decided to wait for the confer the title of God to be appointed by the Heavenly Court. At that time, the Heavenly Court was full of talents. He could then take advantage of the situation and retreat into seclusion with the flow. This way, he could obtain the qualifications of the elders in the Heavenly Court. He can also return to the sect to continue cultivating peacefully. Why not do it? Nowadays, making Master the God of Land and Wealth is a crucial step. This can save him a lot of calculations. Maybe the Master can give him some benefits. It depends on whether the Master is willing. His attitude towards life has always been based on the standard of survive. And this time, he was recommended by Senior Sect Uncle Jace to be the team leader for the EC trip. Although there were some gains this time, he still hasn't been able to release the frustration in his heart. 3 months later, Kenzo has successfully mastered the cultivating principle of the true threefold flame. He relies solely on the power of Chi Flame, which is 1/3 less powerful than Netherworld Cold Flame when investing the same amount of spiritual power. However, once he combines Chi Flame, Essence Flame, and Divine Flame into the true threefold flame, the expected power is estimated to be several times stronger than Netherworld Cold Flame. This flame can be constantly present in the body, burning evil and refining the impure. With the presence of multiple flames, the body is protected. Moreover, the power of the true threefold flame will continue to increase along with one's cultivation achievements. Suddenly, a white cloud appears from the horizon. Kenzo quickly extinguished the Chi Flame. He then stood up, clasping his fists and bowing to the white clouds. Jace, sitting upright with a serious expression, spoke slowly. Kenzo, I heard that your journey to the EC 3 months ago was quite fruitful. You handled the provocation from the Dragon Palace Prince properly. It seems my recommendation of you was not in vain. You really hit the nail on the head there. Kenzo's face immediately showed a meaningful smile. Thanks to your kindness, Senior Sect Uncle, I was able to acquire the Flame Technique and now the Thunder Technique. Today's special banquet is a token of gratitude for your guidance and support. Just back a few days, Jay squinted his eyes slightly. Why does it feel fishy? He usually comes here to mooch drinks, and he never seems happy about it. Jace whispered to himself and guessed softly. Could it be that you were tricked and deceived by me during this trip to the East Sea again, Kenzo? Is it possible that you are trying to scheme against your senior sect uncle with the poison pill room? Kenzo replied helplessly with a wry smile. I am just Little Peak's disciple. Since you are a senior sect uncle and an immortal in the sect, you are also from the Sky Peak lineage, highly esteemed by all the elders as the sect steward. Even if I wanted to scheme against your thoughts, I wouldn't have the courage to do so against you, senior sect uncle. As spoken, Kenzo took out 2 night pearls from his sleeve. This is the magical artifact memory sphere. Through his modifications, it can now record sound and images. One for you, senior sect uncle, and one for me. How about recording the entire feast today in the memory sphere? Jace immediately felt happy. He didn't say a word and leaped off the white cloud with hands behind his back. This is really a good treasure. Then he reached out and took a memory sphere. Now that I have it, I want to see what you have up your sleeve. Please. Senior sect uncle, please let Kenzo's smile become even more gentle. As soon as he sat down, Jace quickly opened the memory sphere and placed it aside. Then Jace picked up a pair of chopsticks and poked at the dish in front of his face one by one. He looked at the exquisite dishes in doubt. Could it be that each of these food and drinks contains a harmless herbal medicine, but when combined together, it becomes a dangerous hallucinogenic drug? Are you really inviting me to drink? Kenzo invited Jace to drink together. He specially brewed dragon venom liquor, a tonic for invigorating yang and nourishing deficiency, to please Jace. He noticed Jace's meticulous thoughts during the last drinking session. Of course, he cannot use ordinary methods when dealing with immortal. Are you really inviting me to drink? Kenzo looks harmless and innocent. He shook his head and sighed. Senior sect uncle, have you encountered any hardships outside? Why would you doubt my intentions so much? After all, I am not a malicious person. Jace waved his hand and made a joke. So he took the initiative to pick up the wine glass and invite others to drink. What is an immortal afraid of? The two of them drank very boldly. In no time, a cask of wine was down their throats. But they did not have enough fun drinking. Kenzo immediately took out another cask of senior sect uncle. This is the dragon venom liquor I presented to you as a token of gratitude. Jace raised an eyebrow, secretly chuckling in his heart. This guy's methods are really cunning. He wanted to see how Kenzo would play his tricks. Jace used immortal power to take over the wine barrel and controlled it with chi using the chopsticks. The chopsticks pierced the seal under the control of his immortal power. He dipped a little bit of wine and brought it over. He held the chopsticks between his fingers. He slowly sent the wine into his mouth. Then he savored it carefully in his mouth. Suddenly Jace's eyes lit up. Good wine, Kenzo told him. It is made from 36 poisonous herbs and 12 poisonous insects, supplemented with leobagon. They soak for 3 months until the toxicity is just neutralized. This wine has the function of replenishing essence, strengthening bones, and enhancing male virility. I wonder if senior sect uncle can afford it. Its effectiveness is extraordinary, you know. Jace raised an eyebrow at Kenzo. Kenzo also winked at Jace. They both shared a knowing smile when facing each other. Jace proudly said, "What's so hard to bear about this? I have a cultivation partner." Kenzo immediately spoke upon sensing the situation. "That's why I brewed this wine. Senior sect uncle, please have a drink." Jace felt extremely relaxed. He raised the Dabu elixir wine and took a big gulp, feeling refreshed and invigorated. Despite Kenzo's kind reminder to not drink too much at once, Jace remained unfazed. "I am an immortal. What is there to fear? Besides, you, senior sect uncle, have just emerged from seclusion recently. I truly have nothing to fear." Kenzo smirked secretly. His plot was about to bear fruit. He casually agreed, "That's really impressive." He probably didn't know how strong the wine was. After drinking it, he would probably have to battle for at least 3 days and 3 nights. Kinzo saw that the fish was about to take the bait. At this time, he made another request to Senior Sect Uncle. In the insights you provided on formations, there is a formation called the 9 Radiant Glaze Formation. I studied it with Junior Julia Master for half a month. We still cannot succeed. I would like to ask Senior Sect Uncle for some guidance. Jace suddenly laughed. This 9 Radiant Glaze Formation is a spell formation he created, even if Kinzo wanted to use this formation to trap himself. This is also easily breakable for him. I'll go with you to take a look. As the saying goes, if you eat someone's mouth, you might have to use their hands. Jace drank his potent elixir wine, so I naturally had to give him some pointers. They soon arrived at an open space behind the pill room. Jace immediately spotted the source of the problem, so he decided to help Kinzo make some adjustments. He adjusted the positions of several bronze mirrors as suggested by Jace. Suddenly, the bronze mirrors began to shimmer with dazzling light. It almost blinded his eyes. At the same time, the spell formation had been activated, trapping the two of them inside. Jace looked at him intimidatingly. It's not good to deceive oneself. Suddenly a wisp of flame burst on Kinzo's arms and legs. Jace was taken aback and then quickly shouted, "How did you catch fire?" Soon he realized that it was the divine flame of the true threefold flame. Kinzo pretended to panic. At this moment, I just want to call him Oscar-winning actor Kinzo. Senior Sect Uncle, why are you trembling and crying out Kinzo's name? His other hand threw the memory sphere to a certain direction from behind. In an instant, flames engulfed all around Kinzo. He smiled and waved at Jace. His figure turned into a paper man with a bang, instantly burning to ashes in the firelight. Jace suddenly widened his eyes. This person is trying to tarnish his innocence with the memory sphere. But he is well versed in formation technique, not to mention that this formation is created by himself. Can he still not find the entrance to the life gate? So Jace did not show a hint of panic. Then he calmly began to break the formation. In his eyes, Kinzo was still too inexperienced. Half an hour passed. Jace was still wandering around in place. An hour passed. Jace was already panting with exhaustion. The formations had been modified beyond his imagination. All escape techniques were blocked by the basic formation. Indeed, it was the 9 Radiant Glaze formation that he created. At this moment, he realized that the banquet itself was just a cover. The real revenge is this formation. And he forgot that Kinzo's favorite arrangement is the chain formation. Just then, he suddenly felt a wave of heat in his body. It seemed like his blood vessels were surging madly. A murky yang energy rapidly expanded within his own body, flowing quickly towards his lower abdomen. He nervously clenched his legs tightly, surprised by the potent force of the elixir wine. Jace felt as if his immortal body was burning. Various scenes of affection with his Dao companion flashed through his mind. His breath quickened, feeling as if he were breathing fire. Sweat broke out all over his body. Endure. He had to endure. This level of effectiveness is just not cutting it. As long as he remembered Quinn was waiting for him at the residence. However, the more he thought about it, the more uncomfortable he felt. He stood up instantly, bending his body. He was making an effort to control himself all over. He was keenly aware that Kinzo's memory sphere was still watching him. He absolutely could not embarrass himself in front of it. But this is an addictive pleasure, how could he resist it? Kinzo has always been known for his cautious approach to things. Even when it comes to his own Masters Jr., it's no exception. Not only does he need to set up a banquet to put him at ease, and he needs to cater to his preferences to make him happy. Finally, he recites the Great Path Oath to reassure himself. Jace exerts all his immortal power to suppress that turbid yang energy. He fell to his knees with a thud. Kinzo, I admit defeat. I won't bother you again in the future, okay? Kinzo gave a faint smile. It's almost done, so I'll let him off. Not far away, in front of Jace, a wooden sign appeared with several lines of text written on it. He quickly leaned closer to read it. And he immediately began reciting the vow of enlightened devotion. The wooden sign clearly reads, "From this moment on, you are not allowed to arrange anything involving Kenzo without his permission. Do not disclose any information about Kenzo. Do not give any magical artifact or tool to any living being. Violating this vow will result in losing manhood." Jace was so anxious that he had no choice. Isn't it just a few hundred words of the Great Path vow that I read? At the same time, Heaven Path suddenly sensed it. The sound of thunderous thunder resounded above Little Peak. As he finished reciting his hundreds of words of vows, the surrounding formation slowly dissipated. Together with the peripheral formation, they all closed completely. Jace leaped up in a hurry and rushed toward Sky Peak. He kept chanting in his mouth, "Quinn, Quinn, you must not retreat into seclusion, Quinn." The characters on the wooden sign also began to fade quickly. Kenzo showed a calm smile. Finally, it was temporarily settled. 2 months later, it was time for them to refine pills together at the pill room, as they agreed. "Kenzo, do you still have the elixir wine that you gave me for my senior brother? My senior sister wants to exchange a few cultivation methods for the elixir wine recipe. You can choose the methods." Kenzo replied without looking up. "It's right in front of you." He was about to lower his head to continue working when he suddenly remembered something. He turned his head and reminded, "This wine is not suitable for women to drink. It's specially prepared for men. Women will get into trouble if they drink it." With a clatter, a wooden spoon fell to the ground. A little wine spilled out from it. Julia glared at Kenzo. "What will happen if I drink this? Your movements are a bit too fast, aren't they?" Kenzo rubbed his forehead speechlessly. "Well, maybe you should grow a beard too." Julia, Masters Jr., was first stunned by the idea of growing a beard. She soon relaxed. "What's this? It turns out I just grew a beard. It really gave me a fright. I even thought I would become androgynous or something." Kenzo shook his head helplessly at Masters Jr.'s logical thinking. He has always been very admiring. Then he pointed to the excellent wine next to him. "After the completion of the pill room today, he will probably seclude himself for half a year to cultivate the true threefold flame. And these few types of wine. He has already prepared a year's share for the Masters Jr. in advance." She is drooling because of this tempting wine. Kenzo continues to add, "It's not good to drink too much of this. Masters Jr., you should drink in moderation." What is bottom line? It must be something that others cannot think of and cannot guess. As for what Kenzo's bottom line is, there are probably so many that even the audience can't count them all. After he briefly explained the situation to Julia Masters Jr., Kenzo continued to bury himself in his work. Julia sat quietly on the side, watching Kenzo sorting herbs. Unconsciously, she became a little lost in thought. After a moment, Julia widened her eyes and stared straight at Kenzo, saying, "Actually, you are quite good-looking too, Kenzo." Kenzo looked a bit confused. Julia's heart was filled with drunkenness as she looked at Masters Jr. Her smile became even more brilliant than before. "Why didn't I notice this before?" she thought. Before Kenzo had a chance to say anything. The next second, Julia had already fallen asleep on the table. Kenzo quietly watched Masters Jr., who had fallen asleep. She, asleep, had skin as fair and smooth as jade. She could be described as having a pure and clear mind with a translucent spirit. Unfortunately, she is too unpredictable when she is awake. 2 days later, he arrived at the riverside. He was going to find Kaya to discuss the matter of seclusion. Kaya was a little puzzled and asked, "Senior brother, aren't you in seclusion at the pill room this time?" Kenzo, controlling the about-to-go-wild true threefold flame, said, "No, cultivating the true threefold flame easily leads to explosions in the house. Later, he will get a small raft to go to the lake for seclusion, which will be safer." Later, Kenzo also placed several porcelain bottles in her hands. It would be good for Junior Sister to use this medicine powder to protect herself during seclusion. He carefully instructed her on the usage and dosage of each bottle of pill room. Kaya kept pondering in her heart and couldn't help but ask quietly, "Senior brother, doesn't true threefold flame need to be hidden? Isn't this method very powerful?" Kinzo casually tapped junior sister's head. "Just stop teaching in recent years. You have forgotten everything I taught you." True threefold flame was bestowed by Asher. On the contrary, it will make people more suspicious. It needs to be something that others cannot think of or guess, not something deduced from the information you usually reveal. That's considered a trump card, not just based on the level of power. Kaya learned a lot from senior brother's words. I'm afraid she may never surpass senior brother's steadiness in her lifetime. He then took out 2 porcelain bottles and instructed her to place these 2 bottles of pills in front of the master's door. These pills are specially made for the master, with the effect of clearing away impurities and enhancing clarity. Kaya was delighted immediately. Wouldn't eating it free master from the body of the impure immortal? Kinzo shook his head with a light sigh. It's difficult. He also feels temporarily powerless. Then he walked into the woods. He was getting ready to make the small raft he would need next. As soon as he left, Kaya opened the jade bottle and took a sniff. Is this medicine really that powerful? Soon, a strong and pure chi hit her face. She only took a gentle breath. She felt a bit dizzy, as if her head was heavy and her feet were light. She clumsily returned to her room. Julia's words woke the dreamer up, helping Julia gradually realize her own feelings. 2 days later, Kaya sat quietly in the room to meditate and cultivate. A loud rumble woke her up directly. She immediately got up and looked out the window. I saw a huge 2-story boathouse standing on the lake. The sentence that senior brother said kept echoing in Kaya's mind. I will make a small raft later. She got up and walked outside, questioning senior brother about the size. Is there a misunderstanding? Then she glanced down at herself. Senior brother had indeed been influenced by Julia, Masters Jr., causing him to lose his normal standards of size. 3 months later, at the Immortal Salvation sect where they cultivated, Julia seemed completely exhausted. When Kinzo was around before, she could still help him with pill refining occasionally. No problem. She can still play his homemade games occasionally. Nowadays, he has only secluded himself for 3 months. Why does it feel like 3 years have passed? She is utterly bored and about to mold. She lies there limp like a melting clay figure, holding onto her large gourd, sighing heavily. Senior sister and senior brother finally counted enough. With a twist of her arm, she left Sky Peak in exasperation. Poor me. I am about to be all alone without anyone to accompany me. Unfortunately, I am also Master's closed-door disciple. Just then, the window of the neighboring building was pushed open. Emery, who is glowing with radiance, leaned out to look this way. Julia was exceptionally excited to see the appearance of senior sister. She lunged towards Emery through the window. Will you accompany me to Little Peak? I want to play Dodashi. I want to play Immortal Life Simulation. Emery pinched her nose. Junior sister Little Peak, is that a place I can go to? Emery's face showed a meaningful smile. Wouldn't you feel embarrassed if I went there? Julia was directly stunned by this embarrassing situation. Realizing what had happened, Julia immediately waved her hand to explain. You have misunderstood something. Kinzo and I have a pure relationship. Is that so? Emery smiled with narrowed eyes, his gaze full of aggressiveness. It's a pure relationship, but they refine pills and set up formations together every day, spending time together intimately day and night. Julia immediately retorted. She immediately told her about Kinzo's issue with not being able to touch women. Because his junior sister grew up under his watch, it's okay. Their interaction is limited to just fist bumps and high fives. Emery immediately sensed that something was wrong and continued to inquire about the origin of the illness. Julia patiently explained to her about the incident when they went out together last time. Emery burst into uncontrollable laughter a moment later. You actually believe such a simple trick? Indeed, This woke Julia up immediately. This guy actually dared to deceive me. Emery gently touched her head. Stay calm, Julia. Such a chaste and virtuous man is truly a rare treasure in this world. Don't you ever miss out on him. Julia eventually succeeded in self-strategizing. She couldn't believe it herself. She was attracted to a child who was just over 100 years old. Julia blushed all of a sudden. Senior sister, what are you talking about? How could I possibly be with him? She looked confused and didn't know how to explain. She could only use seclusion as an excuse to return to her own room. Emery chuckled softly. She followed and barged into her room. Julia, what are you shy about following me for? I will teach you how to dress and groom first. Emery showed a kind smile on his face. Let me see. What's your figure like now? The next second, clothes and jewelry were thrown aside. Only the lively laughter and chatter of the two fairies drifted nearby. Several months after Senior Sister's visit, Julia had been pondering over the words she had said. She was thinking about it when she went to lead the cultivation trial. She was also thinking about it while meditating in seclusion at the cave residence. Originally, she felt that she had no other feelings for Kenzo. They are just good friends who get along well with each other. Finally, Julia successfully convinced herself. Could it be that she really had feelings for Kenzo without realizing it? Until one day, when a paper crane with a message, "Emerging from seclusion with Kenzo," landed in her hands. Julia carefully held the paper crane in her palm. She had a happy smile on her face. After a while, Julia was shocked. She suddenly realized what had happened. The image of Kenzo couldn't help but appear in her mind. Her own reaction. Could it be that she's really attracted to a child who is only over 100 years old? Some things you only know once you ask. Senior Sister's voice echoed in her ears, encouraging her to go and ask clearly. Julia quickly arrived at the pill room of Little Peak and looked at Kenzo, feeling somewhat unable to speak. Kenzo, do you like? Kenzo didn't look up, only asking her what she liked. Do you really like pill refining? Kenzo was puzzled by why she suddenly asked this. Julia quickly turned her head and dodged, pretending like nothing happened. It's just a matter of saying a sentence. Why is it so hard for her to spit it out? 2 hours have passed. Kenzo has wrapped himself in layer after layer of protective gear. Julia still couldn't bring herself to ask the question. She had thought about speaking up dozens of times. Yet she still found it difficult to bring up. So she made up her mind. With all her might, she uttered in the weakest tone. How did I do in this pill refining attempt? The heavy protective suit made it difficult for him to hear clearly. But he still raised his thumb. You are doing great as always. Masters Jr., your immortal power really helped a lot. Julia acted very awkwardly. She kept rubbing her clothes with her hands. Lower the volume. What do you think, Kenzo? How did I do, Masters Jr.? Kenzo really lives up to your expectations. You can indeed make a tough straight woman change herself for love. At this moment, it is a critical period for pill refining. Master Kenzo is fully in control of the toxic pill room. He is wearing too many antitoxin magical artifacts and Julia's voice is too low to be heard clearly. He only heard Kenzo. What do you think of these words? Connecting to the earlier topic of discussion. Kenzo nodded gently. Without even looking back, he said very strong and stable. What's even rarer is how pure it is. Surprisingly, there are no impurities at all. Julia's mouth opened slightly. Her whole being froze in that moment. She couldn't contain her excitement as her heart raced. Then she threw the bottle of medicine in her hand to the side. Do you know what you're talking about? This action directly scared Kenzo. He looked at Julia with confusion, not understanding what he had done wrong. He then stood up and walked towards Julia. What's wrong? Did I do something wrong? Julia instinctively stepped back. Is something wrong? Think about what he said. Isn't this outrageous? Kenzo looked at her with a puzzled expression. Julia's slightly round pretty face instantly turned red. Even her forehead was emitting wisps of white smoke. She took a half step back to say something, but all that came out were tremors in her voice. She turned embarrassedly and ran towards Sky Peak. Kinzo reached out to stop her, saying they wouldn't even take today's pay if she left. Julia's Masters Jr.'s immortal power is indeed very stable, strong, and pure. Otherwise, it would not have been possible to succeed on the first furnace and save the other 8 materials she had prepared. If only I have such a pure immortal power like Masters Jr. However, I am also about to cross the tribulation soon. After a while, Kinzo quickly realized what had just happened with Masters Jr. Perhaps it was just a misunderstanding. Anyway, he refocused his mind and prepared for pill refining. He could explain things later. Julia flew swiftly in a large gourd between the peaks of the Immortal Salvation sect. She casually pulled down the wine gourd hanging from her waist. She tilted her head back and took a long drink. Then she swayed back and forth, speeding back and forth. What was she thinking about? It was Kinzo, after all. Then she darted straight into the woods. She lay there relaxed, with a slight blush on her face, thinking that she didn't really have much femininity. She casually pulled out a treasure bag. Inside was exactly what Senior Brother had brought earlier. The colorful fairy skirts that Senior Sister made for her. Julia quickly threw the treasure bag out. How could I possibly wear this? And it's for Kinzo. But she just threw it out. Unconsciously, she looked over. It shouldn't be a problem to just try it on, right? As long as she doesn't let others see it. He is a qualified weirdo. It's better for him to stay away from this kind of karma related to women. But at this moment, Julia is making every effort to test Kinzo by bringing out those fancy fairy dresses. It just seems a bit too revealing no matter how you look at it. This is simply a piece of cloth with another piece of cloth added. From early morning, she was busy in the small building without stopping until noon. She finally stood in front of her own door. It's not a big deal. On the contrary, this is even more than what she usually covers with a short skirt and shirt. She just went out for a stroll. She quickly flew to the sky above Little Peak. She scanned all around Little Peak with her immortal sense. She found Kinzo sitting in the circle chair, looking very relaxed. Meanwhile, Kaya was sitting cross-legged on the cushion, listening attentively. So she pushed the door open with both hands, shouted loudly, and rushed in. Both of them looked very calm together. This was Julia Masters Jr. with a new look. However, soon, Kaya pretended to be flustered and whispered lightly, "Oh, Masters Jr. has always been very beautiful. Now she is even more dazzling." However, when Kaya turned her head, she couldn't help but feel a little resentful. What does she want to do by changing clothes for no reason? Julia came this time mainly to see what Kinzo's reaction would be. "What do you think, Kinzo?" But he just lightly said, "Not bad." Just took a sudden look. Maybe he will be a little uncomfortable. I see. Julia lowered her head and looked at the carefully selected matching for a long time. Her expression was slightly disappointed. Kaya watched as Senior Brother remained unmoved, secretly laughing in her heart. She soon took the initiative to lean over and whispered in Julia's ear, "When you dress like this, a light makeup would be more suitable." So she pulled Julia aside in one swift motion. Kinzo, seeing this, didn't say much either. He picked up the scroll and continued reading carefully. Shortly after, Julia appeared again. The Masters Jr. at this time seemed like a different person. She appeared more refined than before. She added a touch of inherent charm that women possess. Not bad. Kinzo gives a thumbs up from the heart. Among the women I have seen, your beauty definitely ranks in the top 3. Upon hearing him say that, Julia blinked her eyes and suddenly became happy. She accidentally burst her clothes with joy. She hurriedly covered her chest and went to change her clothes first. Kaya looked at her disdainfully. What's so great about it? The two of them had a great time playing in the room. Before long, they started to snore heavily and fell asleep. Kinzo took this opportunity to enter the underground secret chamber of the pill room. His realm shows signs of breaking free from shackles at all times. Fortunately, he can still suppress it. He sat on the meditation cushion in the corner with his eyes closed, focusing his mind. With his hands clasped together in a circle, a ball of orange-red flame slowly condensed and then was absorbed into his body. It began to wander slowly, tempering his elemental soul body. 9 petal lotuses rotated slowly around him, ethereal and ever-changing. This time in seclusion, he is very likely to break through to return to the path of the 9th realm. By then, he may directly face the heavenly tribulation. In that case, crossing the tribulation will also have to be put on the agenda. Going out to cross the tribulation is a plan he made a long time ago. Firstly, he does not want to expose his cultivation achievement, and secondly, he does not want others to see his heavenly tribulation. But if he wants to smoothly slip out of the sect gate, he will also need to put in some effort. Kinzo really racked his brains to venture out, and even dared to bribe an elder. Kaya, who was sound asleep in the early morning, was forcefully awakened by someone. She had not fully regained her senses when she heard Julia shouting excitedly, "My bottleneck broke on its own!" Kaya remembered to inform senior brother before she returned to seclusion. Kaya, who was originally in a daze, was immediately startled awake. Wait, she took a nap and the bottleneck broke just like that. Masters Jr. is quite refreshed at the moment. Remember to inform senior brother about this. I will come to assist him in pill refining once I emerge from seclusion. Junior sister suddenly heard a message in her ear. Kaya instinctively responded. Kinzo continued to convey what Masters Jr. said. I heard it. I will probably need to go into seclusion for 3 months. After 3 months, I may have to go out for a trip. It will probably take 3 to 5 years to return from this trip. Senior brother, you are about to go out to undergo the heavenly tribulation. Kaya was first happy, then a little lost. Since she came, she has never been unable to see senior brother for so long. Kinzo, worried, reminded again, when I leave, I will wake master up. Please, master, do not go into life and death seclusion in these few years. Remember not to wander around. Always keep my previous instructions in mind. Don't be careless and be taken advantage of. Listening to senior brother's endless instructions, Kaya, long accustomed to it, already knew. Senior brother, when you emerging from seclusion, it's not too late to talk about these things. In the blink of an eye, 3 months have passed. Kinzo lowered his head and looked at the faint blue light shining in the palm of his hand. He hadn't expected it. Returning to the path of the 9th realm came much earlier than he had anticipated. Now everything is ready. He just lacks a reason to leave. The rules of the Immortal Salvation sect are strict. If a disciple who has not attained immortality wants to leave the sect gate without permission, they can't even pass through the mountain protection formation. However, this is also to restrain the words and actions of the disciples, to urge them to cultivate and to protect their safety. Kinzo is listed in the disciple registry of the Immortal Salvation sect. He is an excellent return to Void Stage 2 Chi cultivator, with quite strict restrictions on his outings. In order to pass through the heavenly tribulation this time, Kinzo has long been prepared with reasons for his departure. He smiles calmly. Fortunately, our little peak is rich in spiritual fish. Upon arriving at the Hall of Wonders, Kinzo navigated his way to find the elder he was familiar with. He expressed his desire to return to his hometown to sweep the tomb. People's hearts are made of flesh and grow, and the Tao heart also experiences the tribulation of the mortal world. But the elder remembered that both of his parents had passed away 18 years ago. Where does the tribulation of the mortal world come from? Kinzo calmly took out the spiritual fish he had prepared beforehand, and earnestly told him that despite his recent seclusion, he found that he had not completely severed his ties with family affection. Even though a Chi cultivator may detach from worldly affairs, they still need to uphold loyalty, righteousness, propriety, and filial piety. The elder's face lit up with a smile upon seeing the spiritual fish. He hastily took those spiritual fish wrapped in water balls and put them into his pocket. Then he cleared his throat, saying, "Since you are so filial, I will naturally fulfill your wish. truly deserving of being Kinzo. Just let him cross the tribulation when you mention he crosses the tribulation. First, he bribed the elder of this sect to escape. Then he used both the earth escape and water escape techniques to escape. He managed to run far away, which was considered successful. It was already a deserted and remote island where nobody would question him. I could tolerate that. But he felt it was not enough. Even in such a desolate place, he used physical disguises, illusion techniques, and 2 layers of shape-shifting techniques as an additional precaution. I really admire this Kinzo. Elder reminded you that you are a promising seedling in cultivation. Your future is limitless, so remember not to cause trouble or break the rules, and do not be attached to the mundane world. Do not let worldly desires cloud your Taoist heart. Disciple remembers Kinzo's words seriously. This trip, I also want to take the opportunity to undergo several years of cultivation trials in the southern continent. Can Sec Steward not go to my hometown to investigate? Also, don't let Sec Steward take me there. The elder readily agreed that these are all trivial matters. Go ahead, the sooner the better. Kinzo hurriedly bowed and expressed his thanks. In his plan to cross the tribulation. This is a very crucial and must be achieved small step. He quickly flew to the Sec gate after leaving Sky Peak. He took the jade token for going out and said that he was returning home to sweep the graves. The immortal in charge of guarding the Sec gate also reminded Kinzo to be careful outside. Kinzo thanked them twice and flew out of the Sec gate on a cloud. On his way, he used the earth escape technique against mountains and the water escape technique against water. 2 weeks later, in the northeast of the southern continent, Kinzo successfully found his parents' grave on a hill. He also presented the fruits and pastries he prepared on the way, burned 2 rolls of yellow paper, lit 3 sticks of incense, and cowed out 4 times. He stayed near the grave of his deceased parents for 7 days. Even though his parents had passed away a long time ago, the ties of kinship still connected him closely to them. After bidding farewell to his parents, Kinzo once again prepared to embark on his journey to the place where he had pre-selected to cross the tribulation. The place he chose is at the edge of the mundane world, on a very secluded and inconspicuous little island. This is what he considered the best place to cross the tribulation. However, it is not enough, as he also needs to disguise himself. There are several basic principles for disguising one's appearance and form. In Kinzo's opinion, using just illusion technique or shape-shifting technique alone is far from sufficient. He first needs to change his appearance using physical methods such as makeup techniques. After that, he will apply a specially made ultra-thin water-moistened silk mask. Then he will transform into a Taoist using the illusion technique, followed by using 2 layers of shape-shifting technique. In this way, if a sage were to take a glance at him, even if they see through the 2 layers of technique disguise, they still won't be able to see his true appearance. Since the last trip to the East Sea, Anthony has not been defeated in battle. Dragon is still immersed in comfortable and dry fantasies. This has further reinforced Prince's determination to do something big again. He wants to awaken his tribe. In the East Sea Crystal Palace, Dragon Youth Anthony is bound with chains to an iron pillar. His eyes are tightly closed. Echoing in his ears are his father's angry shouts one after another. At the celebratory banquet that day, the Dragon King was so angry that he smashed the cups and dishes. He glared angrily, rebuking his son's absurdity. Just because he said that sentence. I want to worship Master Immortal Salvation Sect Cultivate Trinity Sect Saint Law. You should know that if he goes to worship at the Saint Sect, it will be considered a great offense. Going out to worship and cultivate will be considered rebellion against the Dragon Sect. In terms of both emotion and reason, he will be ridiculed by people within the Dragon Sect. Nevertheless, even so, the look in his eyes remains firm. Dragon Mother felt sorry for her son and kept pleading with the Dragon King, saying that he was just a little shaken up from the last arena fight. Then she turned her head and earnestly advised him to apologize as soon as possible. Our techniques are not meant to be used like this. Our treasures are not for you to play with. Why do you insist on acting so foolishly? and in front of so many elders and uncles within the clan, speaking such absurd and unreasonable words. Do you want to pay your respects at the saint's door? Do you know that aside from the intercepting sect, the saint's door doesn't accept any descendants of the dragon family? In the beginning, when the master of the explaining sect accepted a cursed dragon disciple, they believed that they stripped away the dragon family's final fortune and placed it on this cursed dragon. How could such humiliation within the clan be easily forgotten? Anthony is unaware of his mother's words as well as whether they are true or false. Explaining sect, one of the 12 golden immortals, the yellow dragon immortal, clearly has dragon bloodline. He was heavily injured and accidentally fell into Kunlun Mountain, where he was taken care of by the 3 pure ones, who had not achieved the status of saint at that time. He became a treasured dragon in the house of the 3 pure ones. Before the ancient saint emerged, the dragons were ashamed of their disconnection from the yellow dragon immortal, who was then removed from the dragon registry. After the 3 pure ones became saints, the dragons were too proud to flatter the yellow dragon immortal, and rumors began circulating within their clan accusing him of being a bastard. After the 3 pure ones became saints, a group of dragon sages brought their young dragons to seek apprenticeship. They were respectful towards the saints, but hesitated when they learned that the Tonkion sect leader, who had the lowest threshold for accepting disciples, would only allow the most outstanding dragon disciples to become apprentices of the saints. They did not directly apprentice themselves to the saints. The dragon sages turned back, feeling that the saints intended to humiliate them. In fact, in Anthony's eyes, the dragon's arrogance is the most absurd. This remark directly angered the Dragon King. He then locked him up with iron chains. Anthony understood. Now only he, as the Dragon King's prince, could completely humble himself. He had to go and apprentice himself under the Immortal Salvation sect, which was ranked below average within the Trinity Immortal sect, even if he had to kneel for a long time before entering the sect. By becoming a registered disciple, he could break the dragon's meaningless pride and shatter their twisted self-esteem. This was the dragon's only way out. 3 months later, at the Deep East Sea, Crystal Palace, he watched his own son suffer the torment. Dragon Mother could only cry sadly without stopping. The Dragon King felt a bit at a loss seeing her like this. He also thought about quickly finding someone to take the blame and resolve this matter. Dragon King ordered a thorough investigation quickly. A musician from the aquatic clan, who taught Dragon's son, was made the scapegoat. Later, Prince Anthony of the Dragon Palace was tied up in a huge clam-shaped boat, speeding towards the border between the South Sea and the East Sea. Now the Dragon King is going against public opinion, suppressing all voices. He can only let Prince Anthony go out for a while to avoid the limelight. Meanwhile, Kinzo has already prepared his disguise. At the junction of the South Sea and the East Sea lies Immortal Island, where a fairy light surrounds it, resembling a giant turtle. In a treasure pool at a corner of Immortal Island, a small azure dragon is slowly looking around with its eyes just emerging from the water's surface. It's time for the great Luo Golden Immortal to give a lecture on Taoism again. Nearby cultivating immortals all went to listen. And he finally had a chance to escape. As early as when Prince was 6 years old, he had memorized the routes of the 4 seas. From then on, he began to head south. He traveled along the coastline of the southern continent towards the eastern continent, disguising his tracks with the turbid airs of the mortal world. Afterward, he landed at the border between the southern continent and eastern continent, stealthily advancing towards the eastern continent, and with a splash, dived into the water. His figure slowly shrank and quickly turned into a length of about 3 feet. He swam towards a crevice at the bottom of the water. When he opened his eyes again, he had arrived on the eastern coast of the southern continent near the East Sea. On the continuous coastline, there was a fishing village built from simple stones. An old man inside a house walked towards the Taoist with a bowl of hot water. The Taoist drinking water was Kinzo, who had just given away some talismans in the village. At this moment, he received the warm gratitude of the villagers. He also used this as a cover. This made his actions at the East Sea more reasonable. He can earn some fortune and merit for himself. However, This talisman is not given casually by him. He deeply understands that helping the good will bring good results, and helping the evil will bring bad results. But because he cannot determine the talisman, he omits himself, whether he is helping good people or bad people. The most prudent approach is for him to freely distribute some intentionally erroneously drawn talismans that have no significant effect as aids to sleep by the pillow. By doing so, he will not incur any karma. Suddenly, he realizes that a strong and overbearing immortal sense is constantly searching nearby. At the same time, in the distance on the sea's surface, a giant dragon's figure quietly passes by, quickly disappearing into the clouds. He raised his head and carefully examined it. Indeed, it was a dragon. It seems like they are searching for something. Although Kinzo cannot see the figure of the dragon sage, their aura is completely unhidden. Even hundreds or thousands of miles away, it can still be felt. No matter what they are looking for, Kinzo still feels it's better to leave this place quickly. So, he transformed himself into a fish, neither big nor small. Without saying a word, he jumped into the sea. After swimming for a while, Kinzo suddenly saw a small island ahead. His spiritual sense found a pretty good island. The small island is generally round and ring-shaped. Upon closer inspection, it looks quite like a playful little fish. In fact, it is just several small mountains protruding from the sea. Although he seemed quite satisfied with the island's appearance, he decided to get closer to explore further. There are still more than 10 miles away from the small island. He suddenly saw a small whirlpool in the sea. Using his spiritual sense, he quickly discovered that there was a very hidden underwater cave at this location. He immediately decided to go in and take a look. The cave is very narrow. It has an overall upward sloping structure. But that alone is not enough. He then used his spiritual sense to investigate further. The cave actually connects to a small pond somewhere on the island. Not bad, a good place. There is also a natural escape route. The more Kinzo looked, the more satisfied he became. He decided that this is the place. After Anthony left Immortal Island secretly, he followed the underwater terrain and found this hidden rocky crevice. The disappearance of Prince has driven a group of dragon sages crazy searching for him. You are dreaming if you think you can capture me and take me back. Anthony transformed into human form, his body pressed against the cold, hard rock wall. He carefully explored the situation within 3 miles of the small island. He secretly operated the dragon secret technique, the hidden dragon technique. Suddenly, Anthony felt a danger approaching. But in fact, it was not something he had discovered, but the innate ability in his bloodline to sense danger. A Taoist from the human race suddenly appeared outside the cave and slipped into the crevice, approaching Anthony's location. Anthony breathed a sigh of relief as the Taoist's aura was no longer strong. He also did not notice himself using the hidden dragon technique. Just that he would be doomed if he moved forward. Good immortals are deceived by other immortals. A good dragon is ridden by immortals. I saw the Taoist approaching quickly. When the Taoist was only 3 zhan away from him, he suddenly launched an attack against the man posted on the cliff face. His figure shot up with a green flash. A dragon claw suddenly revealed its true form. Soon he transformed back into Azure Dragon and quickly searched the surroundings. Suddenly, an Azure Dragon head fiercely emerged from the sea. It opened its big mouth without hesitation. It seemed to want to swallow Taoist Kinzo in one bite. Its innate divine powers swallow the sky and devour the earth. Anthony opened his big mouth. It pretended to swallow this Taoist in one bite. Just at this moment, Kinzo clearly hesitated for a moment. But his reaction was also incredibly fast, almost instinctively dodging to the side. He quickly overturned the 2 porcelain bottles with his left hand. In the blink of an eye, the dragon's head shimmered with dazzling blue light in the seawater. The dragon bit off the Taoist's left arm directly and swallowed it whole. Suddenly, Anthony felt dizzy. He realized how powerful the hallucinogenic drug he had just ingested was. Meanwhile, the Taoist was holding a porcelain bottle that was emitting an effectiveness. He quickly looked inside and found a small paper man in his stomach. But the effectiveness was too strong. If he fainted, he would undoubtedly die. Anthony realized he had fallen into a trap. The power of the blood vessels in his dragon body erupted, and a blue light flickered on his forehead. The only thing he can do now is to take advantage of the fact that the two sources of effectiveness have not fully erupted yet, and kill the Taoist with the severed arm. The sea ahead suddenly cleared up. The azure dragon has burst out of the rocky crevice. But what he never expected was, in the dark seawater ahead, the Taoist stood there quietly. He showed no sign of wanting to escape, and his arms were perfectly unharmed. Indeed, it turned out to be just his projection. Taoist Kinzo calmly took out the gentle immortal incense. He poured the gentle immortal incense into the sea. Then he muttered and cut it into a paper man in an instant. Suddenly, several identical figures appeared behind the Taoist. Each of them was holding an open porcelain bottle in their hands. Anthony's increasingly massive dragon head lowered. The dizziness became more intense. His thinking became very slow. He only saw him open his dragon mouth and pounce forward. Polygonal mysterious ice appeared in the surrounding sea water. Flames were burning inside the ice. It was shooting towards the Taoist at the same time. They simultaneously used the water escape technique, and their 6 figures quickly dispersed in the seawater, each evading the attack. Anthony was getting dizzier. He shook his head hard. At this point, he had to make a quick decision. It was as if they could read Anthony's mind. The 6 figures had once again regrouped above him. The paper men quickly flew out one talisman after another. They interwove in the seawater to form a large net. The 108 talismans resembled 108 small formations. Spiritual power flowed on them. The water attribute's spiritual energy in the seawater was swiftly stirred up. Talisman formation water source heavenly shock seal. In the blink of an eye, a square seal with a diameter of 100 feet formed. It smashed down on the azure dragon charging from below. The surrounding light surged around the great seal, carrying the momentum of a landslide. Below, the azure dragon roared furiously with its mane exploding. Its claws stretched straight, charging fiercely towards the great seal. At this moment, Anthony had no extra mental capacity to contemplate. Intense dizziness made it impossible for him to continue judging. In his heart, there was only a strong will to fight. And the indomitable dragon-heart azure dragon roared as the great seal descended. The visible shockwaves surged in the sea, causing towering waves on the 10-mile sea surface. The islands on the side kept trembling incessantly. The great seal shattered with a bang. The azure dragon turned out to be unscathed on its forehead. However, the large eyes on its slender head slowly closed. Its massive body seemed to have lost all strength, falling towards the sea floor hundreds of feet below. Kinzo frowned as he looked into the crevice of the seabed 300 feet away. His spiritual sense monitored the surrounding 30 miles. It seems his clone has already taken care of that little dragon. He watched as the falling azure dragon great seal exploded into pieces. Surprisingly, the azure dragon was unharmed externally. Kinzo felt doubtful. Dragons that have not yet attained immortality are able to withstand that much. It seems he needs to improve the formula of his gentle immortal incense. Kinzo fell into contemplation. It's time to verify the effectiveness of the true threefold flame. He casually took out 6 small silver flying swords from his sleeves. He threw them at the paperman clone. These 6 flying swords emitted wisps of white light. In the blink of an eye, they transformed into 3-foot-long precious swords. The sword was steadily caught by the 6 paper men. The little dragon just made a ruthless move. He directly aimed to take his life. It is reasonable for him to counterattack and kill him. He originally wanted to settle the karma on the spot and then calmly leave. It would be good to head to the edge of the South Sea to cross the tribulation and succeed before returning. At the same time, the 6 paper men split into multiple sword-wielding figures and danced above the 6 immortal swords. At the same time, bursts of true threefold flame were ignited. They have already arranged the six-pointed sword formation with their intertwined figures. He operated the sword formation and attacked the azure dragon below. But what he never expected was a shimmering purple triangular scale appeared behind the azure dragon. This is the dragon's secret technique. Kinzo carefully analyzed it. It seems that this little dragon must be someone of noble status, most likely the target being pursued by the dragon sages. Generally speaking, if one sees this kind of purple scale shining and refrains from taking action, not only will they not be pursued, they may even receive gratitude from the Dragon Palace. Kinzo naturally doesn't care about any reward. He only hopes to not encounter such troublesome individuals. But if he kills this dragon now, his primary soul will be immediately locked by the dragon's secret technique. This also means that he will be endlessly hunted down by the dragon. Suddenly, a beam of light pierced into his eyes. He hurriedly reached out to block it. 6 paper men all stood suspended in the air. The light gradually faded away. Kinzo took another look at the dragon below, which had turned into a human form at some point. He is the prince of the Dragon Palace in the East Sea, who is fast asleep. It's actually him. How could he be here? Those dragon sages are searching from south to north. He then remembered the last time when that little dragon deliberately lost to him. Could it be that his conjecture that day was correct? At the Prince Demon Slaying Convention, he did indeed intend to humiliate the dragon in return. As a result, he ended up winning but losing in his scheming. Afterward, he went so far as to make an excuse to pay his respects at the saint's residence, continuing to provoke the dragon's nerves. In the end, this guy was sent to the intercepting sect to become a disciple. He fled to this place once again. Kinzo's guess was not wrong at all. This is indeed quite a drama. Kinzo calmed down to think. If Anthony escaped from the south and appeared here, looking at this guy's actions, it's obvious that he wants to go to the middle continent or the eastern continent, and it's even possible that his goal is to escape to the Immortal Salvation sect. If he really managed to escape to the Immortal Salvation sect, the most likely reaction from the Immortal Salvation sect would be to first stabilize this dragon's son, then find the Dragon Palace to inquire about the matter. In the end, things might turn out quite chaotic. The Immortal Salvation sect is after all his own sect. And this little dragon also has the protection of the dragon's secret technique. He cannot kill him directly. He is truly a troublemaker. Kinzo really lost big this time. He used up so many hallucinogenic drugs. He can't even collect dragon blood anymore. Kinzo released several paper men again to clean up the scene properly. At this moment, Anthony is quietly lying on a bamboo raft. The massive water flow is pouring directly onto his face from above. Several people working together will definitely have to clean him up. One is responsible for pouring water to rinse him. One is responsible for applying powerful soap powder to him, and another is responsible for scrubbing him with a strong steel brush. Anthony is in a coma. He feels like a salted fish with its internal organs removed. He is repeatedly rinsed with seawater from inside out. They don't even miss any details. During the rinsing process, 7 or 8 palms kept slapping him non-stop. This is very much like the Dragon Palace chef pounding meat. The top-quality snowflake unicorn beef makes the meat texture more perfect. After a while, a bamboo raft drifted northward into the deep sea. Anthony, who reeks of alcohol, lay quietly on the bamboo raft. Having consumed over 20 bottles of charming beauty wine, he is expected to sleep for several tens of days. Anthony is clean from head to toe. He has been thoroughly washed dozens of times. There is no trace of aura left beyond his own self. Even the tiny piece that was swallowed by Anthony. It cannot be digested by the dragon's stomach. The paper was manipulated by Kinzo using Paper Man. A future individual with a godlike view referred to this event as the dragon washing case. After 3 days, Dragon and the others finally found Anthony Prince. He was drifting alone at sea. Ever since Prince returned, he has been acting strange the whole time. It feels like he is afraid of something. His whole body is trembling uncontrollably. Although he is only 11 or 12 years old, he considers himself quite strong. Think about the 3 months of torment he endured from the ice pillars and iron thorns before. He still hasn't softened at all. But now his trembling is happening naturally, and it is not under his control. Dragon Mother feels heartbroken seeing him like this. She couldn't help but want to care for her son, but she was rejected by Anthony. He tried hard to recall everything that happened at that time. He was completely unconscious after being stunned by formation. However, his body and his bloodline retained many memories and sensations. High-quality ingredients often only require the simplest cooking methods. The dragon washing case left an indelible shadow on Anthony. Whenever he recalls this matter, he cannot help but show fear. He was so angry that he bit his lips. How could the human race be so deceitful? And that Taoist is not even human. He is more like a terrifying beast that devours dragons. He felt like he was about to be devoured by that demon-like human race. And he wouldn't let go of any part of his skin once being eaten. And this process of being treated as an ingredient was repeated at least dozens of times. He would try every method possible to process his own flesh, bringing out the taste of this dragon meat feast to the fullest. Are they facing each other in a head-on combat? Do humans only have delicious dragon meat on their minds? Perhaps this is the root cause of why dragons dare not start a war with the human race. It's terrifying to think about. At this point, he no longer dares to think deeply. There is definitely no winning chance. 2 uncles beside him are having a conversation. According to the rules, they must thank Kinzo. He looks incredulous. No way, he almost got eaten himself. And now Dragon Palace even wants to thank the person who almost ate him. Dragon's family even wants to thank the monster and give him a reward. If all these things are also within the calculations of that human race Taoist, then he is simply too terrifying. Anthony's legs went soft again, and he sat back on the edge of the bed, taking a sharp breath. At the same time, on a coral island near the southern continent in the South Sea, wisps of spiritual energy gathered from the sea surface. Kinzo transformed into a Taoist. He is sitting cross-legged in a recessed rocky area. His whole body's aura is trembling gently. Breathing in and out freely and effortlessly, the heaven and earth are clear and bright. He is completely oblivious to himself. Within a radius of 10 miles, the fish and shrimp in the sea were attracted by the fragrance. Some spiritual beings also sensed the news and hurried over. After a while, Kinzo's forehead shimmered with a blue light. Suddenly, he seemed to sense something, opened his eyes wide, and the premonition of the upcoming heavenly tribulation grew even stronger. Last time, Master's heavenly tribulation was also hesitant and shy, dragging its feet. I wonder if his own heavenly tribulation will come gently or wild and fierce. His own heavenly tribulation should consist of 7 or 8 thunder, right?